Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of viewers aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. It really helps keep these long stories coming. Also, for even more police horror stories, check out my new channel. The link's in the description and pinned comment. I'd love it if you stop by and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. What time is it where you are and which city are you listening from tonight? Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. The rain never lets up on Highway 47. Even after midnight, the downpour feels relentless, as though the sky itself is determined to wash every last trace of warmth from the asphalt. I sit in my cruiser, engine idling, watching ribbons of water stream across the windshield. My name's Malloy, veteran patrol officer, 15 years on this stretch of road. Tonight, though, I can't shake the feeling that I'm chasing something I'll never catch. It starts with a beat-up Dodge Ram half buried in the shoulder gravel, headlights off, and no taillights to guide me. I flick on the overheads, blue and red slicing through the curtain of water, and ease up behind it. No plates. The driver's door is ajar. I can hear the radio inside my cab crackle with static, begging for updates. I kill the siren. The hush that follows is absolute, broken only by the slap of rain against the metal roof. I grip my flashlight in one hand, my Glock in the other, more from habit than threat. Step by step, I approach. The gravel crunches beneath my boots. My flashlight's cone quivers in the wind. I shine it in, expecting an empty seat or a malfunction indicator, just routine. But there's a figure slumped over the steering wheel, shoulders heaving in shallow gasps. "Sir?" I call out, voice steady. "Are you okay?" No response, just the thump of rain on metal. I lean in, breeze of wet air flooding the cruiser. The man's collar is soaked, hair plastered to his forehead. His hands rest limply on the wheel. I circle to the passenger side, scanning the cab, a half-empty coffee cup, a stack of unpaid parking tickets, an old county map with a path drawn in red marker from junction to junction. Everything about this scene feels ordinary, until it isn't. I tap his shoulder. His head snaps up, eyes wild, pupils dilated. For a moment, I think he might speak, but he only blinks, once, twice, then slumps forward again, asleep or worse. My radio crackles. "Malloy, you copy? State 47, dispatch here." "Go ahead," I answer, voice clipped. "Be advised, we've got a missing persons bolo out on a 6-year-old girl. Silver jacket, pink rain boots, was last seen near mile marker 8. Anyone pulling over near that area is a priority stop." I swallow. The flashlight shakes. "Copy that. One moment." I peer back at the man. His face registers confusion in the low beam. "Sir," I say again, louder this time. No movement. Carefully, I undo his seatbelt. His head lolls against the steering wheel, chin scraping metal with a wet rasp. I consider calling for backup, but rain makes comms unreliable and response times slow. Instead, I haul him free of the seat, half drag, half support, and half carry him to the shoulder. My boots sink into mud. I crouch beside him. Water runs down his cheeks as if he's crying, but his features are slack. I catch his badge clipped to the lapel of his jacket. State Police Lieutenant, badge number obscured by grime. A cold shock travels up my spine. "Lieutenant Harper?" I whisper. No reply. The radio sputters warnings about flooded underpasses, stalled semis. I grit my teeth. Something's very wrong. I empty my pockets. Radio, cuffs, flashlight. The world narrows to wet concrete. The dark shape of the cruiser. The still form in my arms. Rain coats my uniform. My heart pounds. I set him gently on the ground and kneel for a better look. His eyes finally flutter open. Nothing but whitewashed fear. He meets my gaze for a heartbeat, then looks past me, staring toward the woods lining the highway. I follow his gaze. Trees bend under wind gusts, branches clawing at the sky. In the half-light, the forest seems to breathe. Somewhere in that darkness, something watches. Before I can ask, he gasps, "They're coming." "Who?" I ask, voice low. His lips part, but no sound comes. I place a hand on his shoulder, solid, sweaty, but he recoils as though burned. I frown. "Lieutenant, are you hurt? Can you tell me what happened?" He tries to speak, but chokes on a whisper, "Get back to your car." His eyes roll back. He collapses into me. I appear to steady him, but instead I stumble. The world tilts. For a moment he's weightless, and I'm alone on the muddy shoulder. The lieutenant's footprints lead nowhere, vanishing into the soggy earth. A distant flash of lightning reveals footprints beside the driver's door. Too many for just one man, human or not. They head off into the woods, deep and dark, swallowed by undergrowth. My pulse spikes. I glance at the lieutenant's body again. Motionless. Alive, barely. I drag him toward the cruiser. Every unseen branch crack, every whispered gust of wind makes me spin, waiting for the thing that doesn't announce itself. Once I reach the cruiser, I jostle him into the passenger seat. The door slams, drowning out the rain momentarily. I lock both doors and climb in. The lights still blaze, but the world beyond the glass is grim. I hit the overhead switch, no change, and try the dashboard lights. Dead. I jab the ignition. Silence. Engine's gone. My flashlight is the only beacon. I lean across and grab his radio, static, unreadable. I slam it down. Then, in the beam of my flashlight, something moves in the back seat. At first it's just a shadow, then the silhouette of a child hunched over. I freeze, breath caught in my throat. The lieutenant stirs, moaning. I spin, gun drawn. "Who's there?" My voice cracks. No answer. My flashlight trembles as I sweep the beam across the upholstery. Empty seat. Only the faint outline of a small handprint pressed into the leather. And a single pink rain boot sitting where no child could possibly have climbed in without me seeing. My mind races. Missing girl, night, woods, lieutenant's warning. Fumbling, I unbuckle his seatbelt again, unlocking his door as I shout for backup. "Anyone, please!" Rain hammers the roof. The radio emits a burst of static, then a calm, female voice. "State 47, do you copy?" I grip the mic. "Dispatch, this is Malloy. I need immediate assistance. My words choke off as the windshield fogs, condensation creeping inward from the edges. Through the haze, I see something pressed against the glass. A small palm, pale as bone, fingertips splayed. I can't move. My throat runs dry. The lieutenant beside me murmurs, "Trust no one." His words drift away with the wind. Outside, deep in the woods, a branch snaps. A silhouette shifts in the shallow glow of the cruiser's lights. It's not human, at least not entirely. And as rain lashes the windows, I realize that on Highway 47, routine stops never stay routine for long. Then the radio crackles again, clearer. "Malloy, respond, you okay?" I squeeze the mic until my knuckles whiten. The rain drums louder. My heart thunders in my ears. I swallow hard, tongue dry as gravel. "Copy," I whisper. "I'm occupied." A low, rasping breath sounds behind me. I don't dare look. My flashlight beam jiggles toward the back seat. The world turned to ink in the instant the headlights died. One heartbeat, I was staring at the little palm print on the leather. The next, the entire world was swallowed by black. Rain hissed on the roof like a boiling cauldron, and my ears popped with the sudden vacuum inside the cruiser. I fumbled for the flashlight. I know I dropped it when I was wrestling the lieutenant into the seat, but my hands came up wet and empty. Then came the slow, deliberate click of the door handle behind me. Adrenaline spiked so hard I thought I'd tear out of my own skin. My Glock was still in its holster, but no weapon in the world felt sufficient. The handle twisted. The smear of water on the glass shifted. I pressed my back to the headrest, gasping, arms outstretched to brace against the seat. Whoever, or whatever, was there, they weren't barging in. They were still, waiting. My radio sputtered. The tiny speaker buzzed with static. I didn't dare answer. Instead, I reached for the passenger door, partly to check on the lieutenant, partly to slip out and circle around the car. But before I could move, a single beam of white light pierced the darkness through the shattered windshield of the Dodge Ram further up the shoulder. Another patrol cruiser, finally. Relief and frustration collided inside me. Help was here, but if I called out, I risked drawing attention to myself. I pressed a finger to my lips, hoping the lieutenant would stay unconscious, hoping the newcomer wouldn't spot me through the rain-streaked glass. The sound of footsteps on wet gravel reached my ears. Steady, measured. The beam of the newcomer's flashlight swung across the highway, washing Highway 47 in pale light before settling on our cruiser. My pulse thundered in my ears. I braced, then opened the passenger door just enough to squeeze through, dragging the lieutenant with me. Rain stung my face as I slithered onto the shoulder, mud sliding beneath my boots. I crouched low, the lieutenant's weight in my arms anchoring me half to the world. "Malloy?" A familiar voice strained by wind. "You in here? Sergeant Rodriguez?" He tapped the window with his flashlight. The beam flickered. I sat bolt upright, coughing. "Rodriguez," I croaked, voice hoarse. I forced a laugh. "Yeah, I'm fine." Engine stalled. He stepped closer, silhouette blurred by rain. "You all right?" His flashlight beam caught the lieutenant's blue uniform. "Jesus, who's this?" I swallowed, looking down at the lieutenant's limp form. "Harper," I whispered. "Lieutenant Harper." He pulled me in on the shoulder. He said something was coming. Rodriguez's jaw set. He reached for the passenger door. I caught his arm. "No," I said, "not here." "What are you talking about?" He shone the light around, the woods pressed in almost close enough to touch. "Malloy, what the hell happened?" I shook my head, trying to steady my thoughts. His car died. He boarded me, said something about ghosts, about someone in the back seat. I swallowed hard. "You need to get him to medics, and we need to tow my car." He nodded, frowning. "Okay, let's move him." We half-dragged Harper between us to the gravel. Mud sucked at our boots. I felt my radio buzz again. I ignored it, watching the cape of trees loom. Rain lashed my neck. Gravel shifted beneath my weight. My uniform was soaked through. The cold crept into my bones. Rodriguez laid Harper on the ground, checked his pulse. "He's breathing," he said, voice low. "Do you have backup coming?" I looked at the patrol car, then the crumpled Dodge back behind us. The road stretched into darkness. No lights, no signs of other cars. The radios jammed, static only. He frowned and pulled out his phone, illuminating his face in a blue glow. "Cell's dead. No bars. Great." Something in the woods crackled. We both froze. Then headlights appeared behind Rodriguez's cruiser, faint, as if through fog. "Here," he said, relief in his tone. "They're here." He pointed down the highway. 2 more cruisers crawled in, sirens muted by distance. I exhaled. We slid Harper onto the tailgate of the first arriving cruiser for warmth. A med tech jumped out, flashlight in hand, and knelt beside him, murmuring questions I couldn't catch. Rodriguez patted my shoulder. "Why don't you get in and warm up?" He ducked under the awning, motioning to the open back door. "I'll take your reports." I nodded numbly. Slipping into the back of a warm cruiser felt like stepping into another life. The ambience of radios, heaters, voices made the dark night suddenly feel like a distant stain. Shivered, hugging myself. The med tech stayed with Harper. Rodriguez sat beside me, breath misting in the cab. "This is not normal," I said quietly. Rodriguez sighed. "Yeah, not normal." We waited in silence while the med tech worked, then climbed back in. Harper's eyes flickered open. He looked at us like he'd woken from a nightmare, because he had. "Malloy," he rasped. "The child." Rodriguez's gaze snapped to me. I shook my head. "She's still out there. Pink rain boot, right?" He closed his eyes, breathing hard. "She's out there," he repeated. "They took her." Rodriguez swallowed. "We'll find her, brother." Harper's gaze glazed over. "You can't save her," he said. "No one can." His words echoed off the metal interior. Outside, rain battered the roof. I clenched the door handle until my knuckles whitened. "We have to try." Harper stared at me. For a moment, I thought he'd speak more. Then his gaze shuttered, like a window slammed against wind. Rodriguez slid over to check on him, and I turned to look out the front window. Through the wiper's slow arc, I saw the Dodge Ram still at the shoulder, its door open as though inviting. Beyond it, the woods seemed to press forward, branches twisting into shapes like claws. The pale beam of the wipers fell on the hood, and there, etched in mud, were 2 words: "Help me." My breath caught. I stumbled to the window. "Rodriguez, look." He leaned over. "What is that?" I leaned closer. The words looked fresh, like someone had traced them with a finger. But when I reached out to touch, the mud was slick and rain-washed. No ridges, no indentations. It was as if the letters were painted on water. A new siren wailed in the distance. I blinked, and the words were gone. Only the wet black metal remained. I could have sworn they were there a second ago. "Malloy," Rodriguez said, voice tight. "You okay?" I sank onto the seat. "I don't know." I rubbed my temples. "This night, everything's wrong." He nodded slowly. "Let's get them both back to HQ. Debrief there. We'll start searches at first light." I exhaled, but the air felt heavy. "Yes. Yes, sir." We started the engine. The cabin light snapped on, revealing the lieutenant's pale face as he lay on the stretcher behind us. He stared silently at the ceiling, eyes wide, as if waiting for something to emerge from the darkness. We eased away from the scene. Headlights cut through sheets of rain, wipers snapping in rhythm. I kept my eyes on the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a child's silhouette in the back seat. But there was nothing, just the reflection of my own haunted face. Somewhere in the trees behind us, a branch cracked. A single echoing snap that reminded me how small we really were, even in 4,000 pounds of steel. I watched the dashboard clock inch toward 4:12 a.m. as Rodriguez barreled down the highway toward headquarters. Siren off, but lights still cutting through the sheets of rain. Behind us, Harper lay silent and pale beneath the med-tech's blanket, his breathing shallow but steady. The cruiser's heater panted against damp chill, and I clutched the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. Every fiber of me wanted to tear my gaze from the rear view, but I couldn't risk losing track of him, or of what might step into that seat next. At headquarters, concrete floodlights turned rain into a shimmering curtain. We pulled under the portico, mud splashing beneath tires. The dispatcher's window swung open before I even turned off the engine. Sergeant Mills, hair plastered to his forehead, met us with a flashlight and a clipboard. "Medics taking him inside," Rodriguez explained, voice taut. "He's stable. No broken bones, just shock." Mills glanced at me. "Officer Malloy, you got some explaining to do." His eyes were sharp with concern, but something deeper, doubt, fear, shone beneath. He handed me a hot coffee that burned my fingers through my soaked gloves. I wrapped both hands around the styrofoam cup, breathing in the bitter steam. "Thank you," I said. Inside, the station smelled of stale coffee, bleach, and wet gear. Rodriguez led Harper away, and I sank into a metal chair in the debrief room. Mills closed the door behind me and flicked on a single overhead bulb that buzzed in protest. "Tell me everything," he said, pulling a recording device toward him. "Start from when you found him." I exhaled. The room felt too bright, too solid. Outside, the rain sounded distant. I pulled over the Dodge Ram around mile marker 12. I began, voice low. Lieutenant Harper was behind the wheel. He looked disoriented, said something about people in the back seat. I searched inside. Nothing. Then the missing child alert came in. I paused, swallowing. When I looked back, the storm had knocked out my lights and the engine died. Then I felt eyes on me. Heard the handle click, saw headlights, whirled the cruiser around, dragged him out. Mills frowned, scribbling on his notepad. "What did you see in the back seat?" My throat closed. I wanted to lie, to say nothing, but I owed it to Harper, to that missing girl, wherever she was, to tell the truth. "Something moved there," I whispered. "I swear I saw a kid. Pink rain boot, a small handprint on the leather." He stopped writing. "And you think?" "I don't know." My fist tightened. "I don't know what I think." I ran a hand over my face. When the other cars arrived, the print was gone. But before that, I felt watched. I heard footsteps in the woods. And Harper, he said we couldn't save her. No one could. Silence stretched. The only sound was the hum of the station's fluorescent light. Finally, Mills shut off the recorder. "We'll log this as a multi-agency incident. You're relieved until further notice." Relief and frustration warred inside me. Relieved to be out of that car. Furious that I couldn't stay out there, couldn't chase whatever had that girl. I stood, drained. Outside, the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. As I passed the intake desk, I overheard voices in the hallway, detectives arguing over search grids, dispatchers calling out coordinate updates. Everyone moving, everyone trying to fill the void where a child should be. I spun on my heel, heading for the exit. In the lobby, a janitor mopped a puddle by the front doors. He looked up as I passed. "You okay, officer?" he asked kindly. "Just cold," I replied, pulling my collar higher. I forced a nod and stepped back into the damp night. The station's lights receded behind me as I walked to my cruiser. Rain dripped from the brim of my hat onto the pavement. I hesitated at the tailgate. The bed was empty. No evidence bags left behind. But on the bumper, someone had left a single pink rain boot, muddy but intact. My heart lurched. I bent to pick it up. The liner was damp, the tread worn. I closed my fingers around the toe. A voice behind me, soft, childlike, said, "Why'd you leave me?" I whirled. No one there, only the highway stretching into black. Echoes of cruiser engines idled in the distance. My breath caught. The boot slipped from my hand, clattering onto the pavement. I picked it up again as footsteps approached. I didn't see who it was until they were almost at my side. Rodriguez stood under the street lamp, coat collar turned up, flashlight tucked against his chest. "Find something?" he asked. I held out the boot. His face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "Back by the front doors." I shivered. I thought maybe. He cut me off. "That's from the Ram." His voice trembled. That girl's boot. She couldn't have walked off on her own in this storm. I met his eyes. We need to go back, now. He glanced at the station's glowing windows. We can't just... Backup's here, I snapped. Detectives, medtechs, everyone's busy with Harper and procedures. My chest tightened. She's out there. If we don't move, we'll lose her. Rodriguez's jaw clenched. He squared his shoulders. All right. He slipped his flashlight into my hand and tapped his radio mic. Dispatch, this is Rodriguez. Malloy and I are heading back to State Route 47, mile marker 12. Tango on the boot. Send me whatever units you can spare. Copy? The dispatcher crackled. Theta 3 units en route. I tucked the boot into my jacket, mud smearing across my chest. We climbed into a fresh patrol car, lights off for stealth, and eased onto the highway. The drizzle blurred the streetlights into halos. Mile markers ticked by. 9, 10, 11, mile 12. The Dodge Ram still sat where we'd left it, door agape like a wound. I flicked my flashlight across the shoulder. The mud was churned, but calm. No sign of bloody struggle. Only faint tracks leading toward the woods. My heart hammered. Rodriguez parked 50 yards back. We climbed out, flashlights raised. The beam sliced through fog, illuminating moisture on pine needles. Branches creaked, leaves whispered. I crouched to study the footprint. A tiny footprint, small enough for a 6-year-old pressed into soft earth. The tread matched the boot I held. I followed the prints to the tree line. They stopped at the edge as if she'd paused to look back. My breath came in sharp bursts. I called, "Emily? Emily, are you there?" My voice swallowed by trees. Silence answered. Then a giggle, faint, behind me. I spun, flashlight whipping through wet air. Nothing but trunks and dripping twigs. The giggle came again, up close, playful, mocking. I swallowed cold fear. Emily? No answer. The prints, the boot, the promise of finding her. And that giggle, drifting among the trees like a child's toy lost in the dark. The giggle echoed again, more insistent this time. Childish and brittle, as though it belonged to something both small and ancient. My flashlight beam trembled through the trees, catching on sap-slick bark and wet leaves glimmering in the damp air. I pressed forward, boots sinking into muddy earth, heart hammering so hard I thought I might leave it behind on the highway shoulder. Rodriguez followed close. Zrania flashlight trained on my back, breathing shallow and tight. Emily, I called, voice cracking on the last syllable. It's Officer Malloy. We're here to help. The woods swallowed my words. Branches dripped water onto my shoulders, cold as fingernails. The giggle came again, from my left, then my right, always just beyond the circle of light. I spun, beam searching for movement. Shadows stretched like reaching arms. Something whispered through the underbrush. Footfalls too light for my heavy boots, the rustle of small limbs shifting. I crouched to examine the footprint I'd found. The muddy impression sank deeper here, a shallow trench that ended abruptly at a tangle of roots. She'd paused here, looked back, maybe to see if we were still watching. I inhaled damp air, tasting pine and something else. Faint perfume of crayons and hair ribbons, as though a child's school bag had been left open on the forest floor. Rodriguez knelt beside me. His breath puffed in the beam. Still fresh? He asked quietly. Minutes, maybe seconds, I whispered. She's close. He nodded, flicked off his beam for a heartbeat, then relit it to reveal a small doll head half buried in the mud. Its glass eye stared blankly upward. I swallowed around the tightness in my throat. The doll was missing its other eye. The ragged hole looked like a wound. I picked it up by the frayed hair, careful not to brush my fingers across that gash. The doll's plastic cheek felt gritty with mud and grit, tiny curls matted together in clumps. "Officer Malloy!" A voice behind us, soft, urgent, made me spin. A detective stood under the canopy, rain rolling off his shoulders like a waterfall. He held a suppressed pistol in one hand and a radio in the other. "FBI's on scene. I'm Agent Calloway. You two should back out before you get yourselves hurt." I shook my head, clutching the doll. "She's in there," I said, voice low. "She's alive." He exhaled, gaze flicking between us. "We have search dogs, drones." I cut him off. "She's in the trees, not on the road. Those dogs won't pick her up in this storm-soaked earth." My eyes stung with urgency. I've been a cop a long time. I've seen people hide in woods before. We have minutes. Calloway hesitated, then closed his eyes. "All right." He tapped his mic. "Grid, 2 teams, lateral sweep. Malloy, Rodriguez, you're with me. Move slowly, keep your light away from your face." I nodded, stuffing the doll into my jacket pocket. It bounced against my chest as we stepped deeper under the canopy. The night pressed closer, trees arching overhead, limbs clawing at lantern halos, distorting our shadows. Each step felt like trespassing into a living beast. We moved in a wedge formation. Calloway center, Rodriguez to my left, me to his right. Flashlights danced independently, illuminating fallen logs, pools of water reflecting our boot prints. The forest grew denser, oak giving way to pine, needles carpeting the ground. The air smelled of rot and new rain. A hushed murmur, almost too soft to register, passed through the pines. I froze, heartbeat rattling my ribcage. The detective's beam swung toward the sound. We edged closer, boots silent on the sodden floor. Ahead, an opening in the trees framed a small clearing. At its center stood a swing set, rusted chains hanging from a sturdy frame, seat boards missing. The ground beneath was churned by tiny feet. I could see dozens of prints layered over each other. My stomach clenched. I stepped into the clearing, water dripping from my hat. The swings creaked in the wind. In one of the chains hung a red rain boot, tethered by its laces. The other boot rested on the ground, sole pressed against the soil. I stepped forward to pick it up. Another match to Emily's size, but something made me stop. I heard a voice, childlike, distant, singing off-key. "Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down." The rhyme echoed across the clearing, warped by space and rain. My flashlight beam swept the tree line, no sign of a child. Rodriguez swallowed audibly behind me. "Malloy," Calloway said, voice low. "This isn't right." "It can't be right," I replied, voice tight. I replaced the boot on the ground. This was her swing set. She mentioned a cabin. Maybe she let herself here. I set my beam on the surrounding trees. The rain slowed to a mist, the hush almost eerie. The detective raised his hand, signaling us to stop. "Footprints," he breathed. He pointed at the adult-sized prints parallel to the child's. One set matched the lieutenant's boots, the other was unfamiliar. Barefoot, treadless but sure. We traced the track stepping out of the clearing, heading toward a vague darkness deeper inside. Cautiously, we followed. The trees perched closer, like watchers crowding around a stage. My flashlight picked out a narrow trail trodden by so many tiny footsteps that the earth was polished smooth. I gripped the detective's arm. "She's this way." We moved single file, stepping into a corridor of trees. No wind swept here, no rain fell. The hush was absolute. My gut twisted. Ahead, branches arched to form a natural doorway, boughs tangled like a puppet theater. Within, a faint glow, yellowish, flickering, beckoned. Calloway signaled for silence. I could see him raise his pistol lantern mount, beam steady. We approached the threshold. My heart pounded, rhythm echoing a drumbeat. The glow became clearer. A single lantern hung from a branch, its wick sputtering in a sheltered pocket of branches. Beneath it, on a stump, sat a small backpack, pink with unicorn patches, zippers open to reveal crayons, a half-eaten granola bar, and a folded piece of paper. I knelt, voice a whisper. Emily's pack. Rodriguez exhaled softly. She's here. His voice trembled with relief and fear. I reached for the paper. Rain's slick fingers unfurled it. On the sheet, drawn in shaky crayon, was our patrol cruiser, its red and blue lights ablaze. Next to it stood a stick-figure girl in a raincoat and boots, smiling widely. Above her, in scrawled letters, "I like it here." My breath caught in my throat. I glanced up at the detective. His jaw was set. "She's telling us to come in." I met Rodriguez's eyes. He swallowed hard. We both knew this wasn't innocent. Whoever had set this scene, Emily or something else, knew us, knew how to lure us in. I shivered, and the hair on my arms rising. The lantern's glow warmed the darkness, turning every leaf to gold, every shadow to a promise. Calloway raised his free hand. "This is where we split. I take east flank, Rodriguez, you." He nodded toward the path behind. "You cover our 6. Malloy, you stay with me. Move slow, eyes up." I nodded, tucking the paper into my jacket. My flashlight darted to the darkness beyond the stump. The lantern's flicker cast shapes that danced along the trees, twisting, beckoning. The sense of being watched intensified. I felt a presence lurking just beyond the beam, a whisper of movement. We stepped forward together, crossing the clearing. Each footfall sounded thunderous in the hush. The lantern bobbed overhead, guiding us deeper. My throat constricted at the thought of Emily waiting further on. Alone, frightened, or maybe something else wearing her skin. Just as we reached the stump, the lantern flickered out. Everything went black. Silence pressed in. Rain resumed, soft at first, then insistent. In the darkness, I could almost hear her breathing. A shallow, steady sigh. Something moved behind us. A soft brush of fabric against bark. I spun, senses ablaze. My hand went instinctively to my sidearm. My mouth went dry. Ahead, 2 points of light, tiny and dim, glimmered where the lantern had been, like eyes. A trembling voice, small and distant, called, "Officer Malloy?" I swallowed, raised my flashlight. The beam pierced the black, catching 2 small silhouettes standing side by side at the edge of the clearing. One wore a pink raincoat. The other looked like Lieutenant Harper, pale and motionless, eyes wide and empty. My heart froze. I opened my mouth, but only the wind answered. Rain sluiced through the branches, each drop a tiny drumbeat on the rich earth beneath our boots. In that sudden blackout, our breaths and heartbeats were magnified. Rodriguez beside me, Agent Calloway fanning his beam out left and right, the world reduced to 3 circles of wavering lantern blue and flashlight white. The hush of the forest pressed in, and in that silence I tasted the metallic tang of fear. I swallowed and whispered, "Emily." The question felt obscene, like calling her when she stood right there in the dark, with Phantom Lieutenant Harper at her side. But the forest answered only with the soft slap of water on bark. Then the 2 points of light blinked and shifted. The girl and the lieutenant both tilted their heads, as if listening. My legs trembled. I could feel the earth's pulse under my boots, life and rot intertwined. "Emily," I breathed again. "It's me, Malloy." The girl's head tilted further. She raised a pale hand and waved. Harper's lips twitched, curling into a smile that did not reach his eyes. Then, in unison, they stepped forward, toward the lantern's lost glow, which hovered just beyond the broken stump. Calloway's voice came sharp. "Hold position." His pistol lantern beam swung to the dim shapes, illuminating their silhouettes under dripping branches. For a moment, I thought I saw movement. Emily's ponytail flicking, Harper's jacket shifting as if filled with wind where no wind should be. Rodriguez exhaled behind me. "This is crazy," he said, voice low. Don't," I hissed. My mind raced. These figures could be illusions, our minds playing tricks in the dark rainforest. Yet every fiber of my being screamed that they were real, that Emily truly stood there in the wet gloom. The girl's voice rang out, soft, clear, yet somehow everywhere at once. "You promised you'd stay," Calloway answered. "We're here to help." Emily's head snapped toward him, and she shook it. "No," she said. Her voice was neither girl-like nor fully child's. Something ancient echoed in the phonemes, a crackled sorrow. "You must stay." She turned back to me, and lightning split the sky. In that flash, I saw her face as it truly was. Features too symmetrical, too pale. Eyes the dark, gleaming pools of someone who has known nightmares beyond mortal ken. And beside her, Harper's form blurred. One moment his uniformed self, the next something twisted, limbs stretched unnaturally. Rodriguez swallowed audibly. Calloway raised his weapon. "Step back, both of you." His voice broke the forest hush, bouncing off trunks like a trapped bird's cry. Emily laughed then, a sound that split the night. It rang like shattered glass, delicate and deadly. "Back?" she repeated. "You cannot go back." Another thunderclap shook leaves loose. Rain fell anew, washing over us, clinging to clothing, skin, bone. The small clearing became a roaring amphitheater of sound. Motion flickered at the forest's edge. Figures moving, branches bending as though shaped by invisible hands. Dozens, maybe hundreds of tiny silhouettes gliding between trunks, their footsteps silent. I realized then, the prints we'd followed, the voices, the giggles, none of it was her alone. Emily was only the herald, the lure. The forest was alive with them, shadows born from fear and grief. Children's laughter twisted into song. "Rodriguez," I rasped. "Get Calloway and Harper, now!" He stumbled, lunging forward, but the girl held up a hand. In the pulsing lightning, her palm glowed, a pale, wet luminescence. The world froze. Wind died. Hooded shapes emerged around us, dozens of small forms coalescing in the half-light, circling. One shape moved closer. A little child no bigger than Emily, face hidden by hoods made of leaves, holding out a hand. In her grip, Emily's missing other rain boot, clean and dry amidst the mud. The figure extended it toward me. My throat seized. I shook my head, took a half-step back, but the creature pressed forward, offering the boot again. My flashlight beam flickered, and the forest tilted. I reached my hand out, but then a shriek cut through the night, high-pitched and terrible, as though the sky itself had cracked open. All at once, the lantern's wick sputtered back to life on the stump. Brilliant yellow light roared back, and the apparition children recoiled, shrieking in unison. Emily's figure flickered, limb by limb, her shape unraveling like smoke. Harper staggered, flickering between pale ghost and solid man, coughing out dark droplets that splashed at my feet. Rodriguez roared, "Malloy, behind me!" He shoved me away, as Calloway fired 2 rounds at the stump. The bullets tore through thick air, punching holes in the lantern's casing. The flame winked out, plunging the clearing into darkness once more. In that midnight black, The final transformation happened. Emily's form collapsed into a heap of wet cloth and discarded toys. The lieutenant's figure dissolved into a swirl of mist. The child creatures clutched the edges of trees, their forms half seen, fleeting as nightmares at dawn. And then, as I turned to flee, I saw her, Emily, in the path behind us, small and solitary, holding out the rain boot. Her eyes were black hollows, her mouth curved in a soft, terrible smile. She spoke in a whisper that traveled straight to my mind. "Stay with me." Lightning forked overhead, illuminating her face one last time, innocent and cruel, pleading and predatory. Then the forest swallowed her, the earth shook, and a single echoing footstep sounded behind me, solid, insistent, beckoning. I ran. The woods became a blur of trunks and brambles, rain and thunder. Behind me, a choir of distant giggles rose, chasing me into the darkness. Relief and horror collided as I burst onto the highway shoulder, panting. Patrol lights glowed distant behind me, a siren warbling like a wounded animal. I turned, expecting to see backup at my side, sergeant, detective, med techs, but there was only emptiness, rain-soaked road, and the echo of that final footstep fading into the shadows. The highway lights receded behind me in wavering streaks, but I didn't slow. My boots pounded sap-soaked asphalt as I sprinted for the cluster of patrol cars, heart driving adrenaline through every fiber. My breath ripped in ragged gasps, each inhale tasting of mud and ancient pine. Behind me, the forest stood silent and implacable, as though time itself paused for its prey's getaway. I dashed across the road, narrowly avoiding a turning cruiser whose beams swept the slick pavement in a searchlight arc. Rodriguez's voice barked through static on my radio, orders I couldn't parse, but instinct propelled me forward, away from the woods that had come alive with impossibilities. Ahead, squad cars formed a loose semicircle of flashing reds and blues, their engines humming, like anxious drones. Sergeant Mills stepped into the road, flashlight raised. "Malloy!" he shouted. "What the hell?" "Over there," I gasped, pointing back toward the forest's edge. Lights swung to follow, illuminating the trembling tree line. But all that greeted us was rain-drenched undergrowth and shards of broken branches. No children, no specters, nothing but the forest's damp hush. I staggered to a halt beside Rodriguez, leaning on his shoulder for balance. "They're still there," I panted. "Emily, and others. They're watching." He blinked, eyes widening. I saw nothing. "They vanish in the headlights," I said, voice hoarse. "But they're there. I felt them, heard them, and her voice." I shivered, recalling the pale whisper. "Stay with me." The memory made the hair on my arms stand on end. "We have to go back in the woods, now." A detective's flashlight beam swung overhead. "You're all nuts," he said. "We're pulling units back to grid search with dogs and drones. You're not going back in there." His tone was scolding, professional, but I saw uncertainty in his grip on the weapon rail. Sergeant Mills exchanged a look with Rodriguez, then tilted his head. "Malloy, do you have any idea what you're doing?" His voice dropped. "One wrong step out there, you'd—" "I need to find her," I interrupted, stamping water from my boots. "We've got minutes before the tide of weather cuts us off. They lure people into the heart of the forest. If we wait for air support, she'll be gone." Silence fell. The rain pounded the cruisers, the wipers slapping in unison. Around us, radios babbled coordinate calls. The world felt split between the artificial lights of law enforcement and the hunger of the woods beyond. I stared at the forest line. Pines streaked with rain, no break in the canopy. And inside it, the memory of that cabin's lantern glow, Emily's pack, the red boot tethered like a trap. Sergeant Mills rubbed his chin. "All right," he said finally, voice tight. "Malloy Rodriguez, you're with me. But we move as a team. No heroics. We deploy Grid 2's handheld radios, zero noise. Calloway's going to maintain comms from the staging area." He pointed back to a grouping of amber floodlights where a trailer sat, its door open. "We'll walk in, sweep west flank, stay together. Understood?" I nodded, heart pounding. Rodriguez exhaled and drew me aside for a moment. "You sure?" he asked quietly. "We don't know what's in there." His eyes gleamed with worried respect. "We stick to the plan." I swallowed. "We find her." I slapped him on the shoulder. "We bring her out." He nodded, setting his jaw. We assembled at the forest's edge with Mills and 2 other officers. Calloway's silhouette lingered in the floodlight wash. Radio clutched at his hip. Grid 2's flashlights, dozens, small and large, glowed like fireflies in formation behind us. The staging area buzzed with anticipation. Technicians checked battery packs, dogs whined in canine cages, drones prepared for liftoff despite the rain. I took a deep breath, savoring the cold moisture. The canopy above was a living dome, dark and dripping. Roots and ferns sprawled beneath, creating a natural labyrinth. The scent of moss and rotting wood pressed in on me. It was as if the woods exhaled sighs of long-forgotten sorrow, of vanished children, lost wanderers, and secrets that refused to die. Sergeant Mills raised his hand. "Move out!" He led the way into the darkness, a silent column of figures winding between tree trunks. Our boots sank into muddy trails, planks of broken branches snapping underfoot. The forest floor sloped downward, guiding us toward the hollow where Emily had drawn her picture. A steady rain fell through gaps in the canopy, each drop a tiny percussion on cloaked shoulders. "Stay close," Mills murmured. His flashlight beam coaxed the path ahead into view. Slick logs, an upturned root clump, a shallow trench that might have been a creek. We traversed each obstacle with eyes peeled, reflexes taut. We were the hunters, yet at any moment the woods could turn on us. Branches sliding to trip the unwary, roots lashing out like snakes, unseen shapes flitting in peripheral vision. Halfway to the clearing, a voice crackled. "Malloy, Rodriguez, come in." Calloway's voice broke the silence, urgent. "We've got movement on drone cam, north edge, about 50 meters. Grid confirms juvenile heat signature. Heat signature splits, 2. His words crackled. A child and something else. A second signature near hers, colder, more diffuse, like a fading ember. Mills hissed, signaling lights off. We halted. Darkness swallowed us again. My breath came in rapid bursts. I eased my radio off my belt, toggled the channel. "Copy, Calloway. Move in on my mark." My voice was low but firm. Ahead, the trench disappeared, swallowed by roots. The trees ahead thickened, their bark slick. We pressed forward in single file, pantomiming silent movement. My flashlight danced on the trunk of a massive oak, revealing a knot that looked disturbingly like a gaping eye. I blinked. It was just a burl, but for half a second it seemed alive. "Here," Mills whispered, halting. We gathered around him. The ground fell away into a shallow ravine, flooded, the water dark as ink. In the standing water I saw ripples, circular, concentric, as though someone had waded through. To our left, a berm of earth created a natural causeway. On that causeway lay a trail of footprints, a single slender set, obviously belonging to a child. The prints led to a cluster of alder saplings where the ground was churned and broken. I crouched, shining my light on the prints. They were fresh, edges crisp. I counted. 7 distinct steps, then a scuffle of prints in the mud, then nothing. It was as though Emily had slipped, struggled, then vanished. My stomach convulsed. Rodriguez crept forward, kneeling to inspect. "They stop here," he murmured. He traced the prints with a gloved finger. Then, nothing. He looked up at the trees. Malloy. I knelt beside him, scanning the overhead branches. Lightning flashed, illuminating a broken nest cradled high in the boughs. Twigs overturned. Eggshell fragments spattered across leaves. Beneath it, a splash of red, a single raspberry from a toddler's snack, or crimson foliage. My beam zeroed in, a single red berry, bright as a drop of blood, lodged in a knot on the tree. I swallowed and rose. "She's close," I said. "Mills, south flank. Rodriguez and I take the north side. Sweep through the ravine exit toward that old cabin foundation." I pointed upriver, where mossy stones formed the crumbling remains of a hearth. "That's where her pack was." He nodded. 2-minute ETA on drones overhead. We hear something, we call. Any questions? I shook my head. No questions. We split. Mills and one officer moving south along the water's edge. Rodriguez and I moved north, boots sliding in muck. The ravine narrowed, ferns brushing wet knees. The air felt heavier here, charged with expectation. I kept one hand on my flashlight, the other on the butt of my pistol. We slowed to a crawl, spotlighting the ground. Then a soft sob, like a child's muffled cry, drifted through the saplings. I froze. Rodriguez heard it too. We exchanged a look. He raised his flashlight to the hollow at the ravine's end. Light revealed a figure crouched on a mossy stone. A small shape, back turned, shoulders shaking. I exhaled. "Emily," I whispered, voice choked. My foot caught a vine, and I stumbled forward, light swinging. The beam landed on the figure's pale hair, damp and stringy, and the pink jacket I recognized instantly. She turned, but it wasn't her. The girl's head tilted, and where her face should have been there was only dark hollow, an empty mask of pink mud and tears. She took a slow, laborious step toward us, joints creaking unnaturally. In her hand, she clutched my flashlight, my actual flashlight, the one I'd lost when my cruiser died. My stomach fell into icy dread. I raised my pistol. "Don't come any closer," I rasped. My voice echoed off wet stone. She paused, head cocked. Then she squeezed my flashlight until the lens fractured, and it erupted in a spiderweb of cracks. Light flickered, then died. Darkness engulfed us again. Rodriguez's breath was a hiss beside me. We stood frozen, listening to the thunderous pounding of our own hearts. Then the hollow whisper came, "Help me, find me." The voice was layered, multiple voices bound together, rising and falling. My blood turned to ice. The forest around us rippled as though alive, as though every tree leaned closer, eager for our next move. I realized then that Emily was never alone. The forest had claimed her, fused her essence with its ancient hunger. And now, in that pitch-black ravine, with the weight of silent trees bearing down, I knew we faced not rescue, but reckoning. Rodriguez swallowed. "Malloy, what do we do?" I closed my eyes for a heartbeat, inhaled depthless fear, then exhaled. "We find her," I whispered, "or we die trying." Rainfall hammered the canopy in a final crescendo as we pressed deeper into the ravine's heart, flanked by impenetrable darkness and the pulse of ancient trees. My flashlight lay shattered at our feet, its glass spiderwebbed beyond salvage. All light now came from the storm's intermittent lightning, flashing white-hot through dripping limbs. Each bolt revealed a tableau of wet stone, twisted roots, and that single hollow figure lingering just beyond reach, its head cocked in silent invitation. Rodriguez's breath hissed beside me. "Malloy," he whispered, voice raw. "We shouldn't be here." I clenched my teeth, feeling the cold steel of my pistol dig into my palm. "Keep moving," I said, though dread coiled in my gut. Each step sank into mud. The forest floor felt alive, gripping at our boots, urging us inward. The hollow girl, the imitation Emily, stood waiting at the edge of a swollen creek, water swirling in eddies around her ankles. Behind her, the trees bent into unnatural arches, roots forming gateways into deeper shadows. I raised my voice. "Emily, can you hear us? You're safe now. Come to the light." The figure remained still, save for the soft, staccato drip of rain from her hair. Then the creek behind her rippled as though something massive moved beneath. I swallowed, adrenaline and terror mingling. The hollow Emily's head turned slowly to the forest behind her, eyes, if you could call them that, glowing with pale luminescence. She raised a hand, beckoning us. Rodriguez shook his head, stepping back. "Malloy, this is—" But I couldn't retreat, not while any ember of hope remained. "I'm coming," I called. My words barely left my lips before the forest answered with a thunderous crack. A wave of wind surged down the ravine, rustling leaves and snapping saplings. The hollow Emily vanished in a blur of rain and mist. In the next instant, the real Emily stumbled into view, soaked, shivering, eyes wide with terror, and entirely alone. "Officer Malloy!" she cried, voice small and brittle. I rushed forward, scooping her up. She felt weightless, drifting into my arms like a wisp. Relief flooded me, then recoiled when her gaze locked on mine. Pale cracks of agony splintered her young face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You found me." Her voice trembled. "But you can't leave now." I frowned. "We're getting you out. Everything's going to be okay." She pressed a hand to my chest, small fingers splayed over my heart. "No," she said. "He's here." I scanned the ravine. The creek churned, darkness shifting beneath its surface. No shapes emerged, but I felt watched by 1,000 eyes. The wind moaned through branches like anguished pleas. Emily's grip tightened. "He's waiting," she breathed. "For you." A crack of lightning boomed as the water before us exploded upward, a form breaking the surface. Roots and debris spiraled around something vast, something ancient. A mass of twisting limbs and pale, mud-slick flesh bursting from the creek's depths. Tendrils lashed out, wrapping around saplings, tearing at bark. And in its center a pair of hollow eye sockets that mirrored Emily's own warped visage. Rodriguez's cry cut through the storm. "Run!" But Emily held me, her grip iron. "No," she said. "You promised." As the beast reached for us with submerged limbs, Emily let go of my chest and stepped away, raising her arms in quiet supplication. The creature wavered, as though pulled by her silent command. She turned, offering me one last look, eyes brimming with sorrow that belied her child's form. I drew my service weapon, aimed at the merging forms of child and monster. "Emily, step back," she smiled, small and tragic. "I can't," she whispered. "I belong here." A final bolt of lightning struck a nearby oak, splintering wood into flame. The ravine flared golden for a heartbeat, and I saw them clearly. Emily's spectral doubles. Countless children standing silent among the trees, their eyes blank hollows, all watching. They held out their hands, beckoning. I lowered my gun, breath ragged. The creature rose fully, water cascading like a waterfall. It was neither wholly human nor beast, but something born of anguish and the forest's darkest yearnings. Emily reached out to it. The children's chorus arose, a single fractured note that resonated in my bones. Lightning faded. The ravine returned to rain and shadow. Emily and the creature sank back into the dark water, their forms dissolving into the creek's current. The hollow children vanished between dripping trunks, leaving only the scent of moss and old tears. Rodriguez grabbed my arm. "Malloy, come on, she's gone." I knelt on the bank, staring at where the water calmed. In my hand, the mud-streaked rain boot I'd retrieved trembled. Emily's voice drifted to me, carried on the wind. "Remember me." I rose, shoulders heavy. We guided each other out of the ravine, leaving the creek's hush behind. At the staging area, lights and voices of relief met us. Medics rushing to Emily, detectives clamoring for answers. But I hardly heard them. My gaze kept returning to the dark tree line where the forest waited. Later, I stood alone on the highway shoulder, the rain finally tapered to mist. I held the rain boot to my chest, staring into its muddy soul. Somewhere back in those woods they lingered. Children who did not belong to this world, Emily and her wraith-like kin, tethered to the living by promises unkept. I slipped the boot into my pocket. My fingers closed around it like a fetter. The wind whispered again, carrying a question through dripping pines. What happens when you keep a promise to the lost? The rain never let up. It hammered against the windshield in relentless sheets, each drop a tiny drumbeat echoing the thunder in my chest. I parked on the shoulder of State Route 47, engine idling, lights off, listening to the world breathe in the darkness. Mile markers flicked past in the glow of my dash light, 112, 113, 114. And with each one, the emptiness grew heavier, as though the road itself were swallowing sound and light. My radio crackled, but there was no dispatch, just dead static that hissed like the whisper of something sliding across wet asphalt. I'd been on shift for 10 hours, head pounding from caffeine and cold air, but I couldn't risk a break. Not tonight. Something felt off. First, because I was alone. Second, because every stop since midnight had left me staring into an abyss I couldn't explain. I flicked on the overhead light just long enough to check my Glock's chamber and tighten the belt straps on my duty belt. Then I killed the light and stepped into the rain. My boots sank into gravel, water sluicing around my ankles as I moved toward the truck's red taillights up ahead. The hazard flashers pulsed in the downpour, making the back of that old Ford F-150 look like a beacon or a warning. I approached in 3 measured strides, baton at my side, flashlight in my offhand. The beam sliced through the night mist and landed on the truck's bed, empty, save for a damp plaid blanket folded neatly in one corner. No driver in sight. The door was unlocked, swung open at my light. I slid my flashlight inside. The cab smelled of sweat and oil and fear. Crumpled fast food wrappers littered the floor. A half-smoked cigarette lay on the passenger seat, ash cold and unburnt. I called out, voice low, "Oregon State Patrol." "Driver, step out with your hands visible." No answer. Just the echo of raindrops striking metal. I circled the truck, heart hammering against my ribs, and looked into the bed. That's when I saw it. Footprints scored into the soil beneath. 8 prints, 2 sets, each spaced too wide for a man my size. They led away down a faint game trail disappearing into the fir trees. My gut twisted. Normally you'd find 4 prints, 2 shoes, 2 feet, but tonight there were only 8. I counted twice. My radio sputtered again. A voice distorted. "Dispatch to 1934. Any traffic on 47? I keyed the mic. 1934 here, no traffic. What's your read? Static. Then another voice. All points, threatening dimensions. The words froze me. I blinked into the gloom. Say again, dispatch? The radio went silent. I turned back to the F-150, felt a prickle at the base of my neck. My breath fogged in front of me. I thought I saw a figure step just beyond the tree line. Tall, hunched, shoulders too broad, limbs too long. I swung my flashlight full power. The beam punched through the darkness, revealing only swaying branches and dripping moss. "Who's there?" I called, palm sweating against the flashlight's handle. No answer, no movement, just the rain. I should have backed off. Retreat to the car, call for backup, but I'm not built that way. I knelt and shone the light on the footprints again. They were human, no claws, no talons. But one set was too large for the driver, and the other set, my blood ran cold. The second set was child-sized. I rose, hand on my holster. Each breath steamed in the cold air. I scanned the dark, my pulse thudding between my ears. Something shifted behind me. I spun. Headlights flared across the road. My cruiser, red and blue flickering. Backup arriving. Relief washed through me like blood returning to frozen limbs. But when the other officer climbed out, just a rookie, 3 months on patrol, his face drained, pale. He didn't say anything. He just held up his flashlight, its beam drifting over the truck, the footprints, the blanket. "How long have you been here, Sergeant?" he asked, voice shaking. "Long enough," I muttered. He nodded, then his beam found it. Scrawled on the tailgate in muddy letters the driver had washed away long ago. But the rain revealed it again. "Don't follow." The words pulsed under the flashlight's glare, the message obvious and deliberate. I felt the hair on my arms rise. I met the rookie's eyes, saw his terror mirrored in my own. He swallowed. "Shall we back off?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't going anywhere. I cupped my flashlight and led him toward the footprints. We took the first step onto the trail and vanished. No scream. No broadcast over the radio. Just the rain, still pounding the asphalt, as the road swallowed 2 more officers who thought they knew what routine meant. And out on State Route 47, mile marker 114 leaned toward the gravel, shining under the rain like an invitation, or a curse. I don't know who pulled us in or why, but I know the highway remembers. And tonight, it remembered us. When they found my cruiser an hour later, empty, but for the glint of my badge on the passenger seat, the only thing moving was the rain. And in the distance, under that broken stoplight, someone, or something, kept watching. Rain-slicked pines crowded the road so close their dripping branches brushed the patrol car's roof, a constant tick like fingernails on glass. When the rookie and I disappeared, our cruiser's lights blinked on auto, casting a Doppler of red and blue across the mist. But within seconds, the beam fractured, shifting off the asphalt and into the forest, before snapping back to the empty guardrail. Dispatch pinged again, this time louder, panicked. 1934, come in. Status. Silence. The rookie's radio mic hung limp at his side. His eyes were fixed on the cracked windshield, the wet streak where something had scrawled across the glass from the outside. In the glow of his flashlight, I saw it. A handprint smeared in mud and water, mid-wrist depth, too large for my glove. The fingers spanned the width of the glass, as though someone, or something, had pressed straight into the cab. I reached out, fingertips grazing the print. The glass was cold, slick. Behind me, the trees seemed to inhale, leaning in. I couldn't look away. He stammered, "Sergeant, we..." A roar shattered the moment. Gravel crunched as if dozens of boots raced toward the cruiser from the woods. Both of us whipped around, guns drawn. Flashlights snapped on in the undergrowth, but not ours. 3 beams, low and wide, bobbed behind the trees. The rookie's knees knocked. I grabbed his shoulder. "Stay calm," I hissed. The beams crept closer. 2 on either side, 1 directly ahead, sweeping the ground. No uniform stripes, no reflective badges. They advanced without sound beyond the gravel, as though their souls glided just above the earth. My jaw clenched. Dispatch boomed in my ear. 1934. Respond. Do you copy? I keyed the mic and yanked it away. Static. Then a faint whisper, "Don't come closer." Not from dispatch. From all around. A low voice inside my helmet, under my collar. The rookie swore and stumbled, dropping his flashlight. Its beam flickered, then died. I stepped forward into the road's pale center line and shouted, "Show yourselves!" The 3 lights froze at the tree line. One shifted, just a fraction, then darted back. A shape detached from the darkness. Tall, slender, jointed wrong, like a sculpture of a man stretched too thin. It moved with uncanny grace, gliding over roots and moss. The second figure followed, smaller, hunched, as though folded to avoid hitting branches. The third stayed back, light, wavering. The headlights from a responding unit washed over us then, but even that glare didn't reveal faces, just outlines, distorted by distance and mist. The rookie yanked free a flashlight from his belt and swept it across the shapes. For an instant, I saw the first figure's head cock, as if it were studying us. Then they all retreated, 3 silent streaks fading into black. Behind us, the trees trembled, dropping a cascade of water. The night swallowed their retreat, but the footprints remained. 2 sets, ours and another, leading away toward mile marker 115. Not back toward the truck, but forward, deeper into the forest. Backup arrived, 3 cruisers, rifles raised, floodlights on. Officers poured out, calling our names, inertia scattering like frightened deer. I yelled, "Stop them!" But nobody moved. They were too busy scanning. The rookie reached for my arm, his voice tight. "Sergeant, we have to follow." I debated. Protocol screamed to stay with the unit, but instinct thumped in my chest. Something out there needed to be stopped. I glanced at the footprints, shallow depressions pooling with rain. The second set, child-sized, lacked any shoe tread. Bare toes had pressed into the earth. My radio chirped, 1934, do you copy? I dropped to my knees, examining the impressions. Behind me, floodlights swung across the trees, but not toward the trail. They focused on the road, on the cruisers, on us, never the path forward. The wet earth around the prints was cold and soft. No blood, no hair, nothing to explain the child's track. Behind me, there was a soft rustling. I spun around. One of my backup officers, Hawkins, stood at the edge of the spotlight, flashlight in hand. His face was pale. He pointed behind me, then around to my chest. On my uniform, where my name tag should have been, there was only empty thread. My name was gone. "Sergeant Marsh," he breathed, voice trembling. "Your tag?" I ripped open my chest pocket. There was nothing but wet fabric. My heart drummed so loud I thought it might crack my ribs. Hawkins shone his light on the rookie. The boy's hands trembled as he unzipped his vest. Same empty space where his name tag had stared just hours ago. Relief twisted into horror. They were here, they were among us, and they didn't need uniforms. A whistle sounded off in the woods, high-pitched and whistled backward. All the flashlights snapped toward the sound. The prints on the trail glowed faintly in the spare light. One after another, Dozens of child-sized footprints erupted along the path, converging toward us, bare, weightless, ghost-soft. I yanked the rookie to his feet. "Back to the road," I screamed. "Now!" He scrambled to turn, but the path behind him exploded with muddy prints. They marched forward, no pause, no hesitation, straight into the floodlight river. The rain dropped harder, thunder rolling overhead. Then, as if flipping a switch, the prints vanished. Only ours remained. The three shapes burst from the tree line again, closer this time. Legs pounding silently, eyes reflecting the floodlights like coals. They lunged. We ran. Emerging onto the asphalt, we slammed back into the triangle of flashing lights. Officers shouted, raised their rifles. The shapes bolted back into the forest without so much as a scream. I dropped to the pavement, chest heaving. Behind me, Hawkins clicked his radio. "Shots fired, unknown suspects, no hit." I felt cold dread slip into my veins. They'd tested us. They'd proven they could appear and vanish at will, and they'd stolen our names. Somewhere ahead, mile marker 115 stood guard, flickering in the rain. I crawled toward it, boots sliding on the wet road, and pressed my palm to its metal post. The numbers seemed to sear into my bones. They knew exactly where to find us. Dispatch came through one last time. 1934, status. I pressed the mic. My voice cracked when I spoke. "We're multiples." The rain drowned out the reply. I closed my eyes, leaned against the marker, and wondered how many more lives they'd take before someone believed there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. We press on, headlights carving weak tunnels through the storm. Every mile feels lengthened, stretched by the pounding rain and the weight of what we've seen. Hawkins and the rookie trail me, boots squelching in ankle-deep water pooling on the roadway. Their radios lie dead at their sides, the displays dark as if drained of power the moment the forest claimed our names. I can't stop that whisper. My own voice, warped, calling me back into the trees. Half a mile past mile marker 115, the road splits. One fork leads into town, the other climbs toward Skyline Ridge, a stretch notorious for low visibility and fatal rollovers. Backup would search the town first, trusting their protocols. But we never followed protocols tonight. I signaled them to follow me up the Ridge Road turnout, an unlit gravel side spur barely wide enough for one cruiser. The rain pounds more ferociously here, as though the clouds themselves wished to drown the world. We round the curve and the fog closes in like a living thing, pressing against the cruisers. The air tastes of wet pine and metal. I kill my lights again, leaving only the hazard flashers blinking red in the mist. Hawkins breathes audibly beside me, a staccato rhythm he can't control. The rookie grips his torch like a lifeline, beam dancing over the tree line. I wait, crouched behind the bumper, and count to 30, heart in throttle with my breathing. When I flick the headlights back on, I find fresh tracks in the gravel, ours, and those impossible child-sized prints, foot to foot, leading off into the underbrush. The game trail we pursued before lies half swallowed by moss and needle duff, but here the earth has shifted, scarred by those same prints, deeper this time. 10 bare toes pressed in looping patterns, as though someone had danced through the trees, landing lightly, only to press down and vanish again. I trail my flashlight along the print edges, searching for clues, fragments of cloth, scraped bark, a scrap of hair, nothing. The ground is pristine, disturbed only by our passage. I find the rookie's gaze locked on me. "What the hell?" he starts. His voice cracks like a whip in the still air. "They're here." Behind us, the fog fractures. Car headlights beam through the haze. Black SUVs, no markings, tinted windows. We're pinned between the forest and phantom vehicles. 4 blacked-out rigs slow to a crawl on the main road, tires kissing pavement. Engines dead silent. They move in formation, like a militia with no origin. I know they're watching us, watching me. Back to the road, I whisper, but my own voice feels foreign, sliding across my lips. Hawkins blinks, confusion and terror warring in his eyes. He takes a step forward, as if to question, but I raise a hand. Go, I say. We pivot, racing back toward the intersection, but the path behind us is gone, reabsorbed into the greenery. I spin on my heel and freeze. The rookie grabs my arm. There's no way out, he gasps. The forest has thickened, branches arching overhead, blocking any sight of the fork we came from. The gravel beneath our boots mutates into soil, soft and wet. I grip my flashlight tighter, its beam stabbing the darkness. The black SUVs on the main road hover there, idling without a hum. Their doors remain closed. No headlights, no taillights, just tinted windows reflecting the specter of Skyline Ridge. Through the glass I spot silhouettes. Tall, angular figures standing upright in the cabins, limbs thrown at odd angles. They linger just beyond the breakers, beyond the reach of anything we know. Hawkins lunges forward. We can make a run for it. There! He points to a low rail fence at the edge of the turnout. Beyond that, a drop-off into a ravine thick with bracken and roots. We can climb, come up behind them. I consider. Freedom a whisper away, but the drop is steep and slick. One slip and we'd be lost in thorns and mud. The SUVs might be waiting beneath patient predators. Yet staying means certain capture. Or worse. Slowly, my instincts take over. I nod and motion for Hawkins to follow. The rookie hesitates, eyes flicking between the forest and our would-be escape. Finally, he moves. We climb the fence, the wood rattling beneath our gloves. On the other side, the slope angles down so sharply my boots skid. I drop to my knees, scramble forward, root and earth churning beneath me. The rookie slides past, nearly toppling into the ravine. Hawkins curses softly, blood mixing with rain on his scraped palms. Our lights clamp onto the trees, gnarled trunks and hanging vines that tug at our uniforms, as though eager to hold us in place. Somewhere below, I hear the click-click of boots on pavement, the SUVs descending the turnout, rolling slower than gravity. They follow our prints, their searchlights off, silent, methodical. We peek over the edge, 3 SUVs film us with infrared beams, lines of heat slicing into the dark like surgical cuts. My blood turns cold. They track our body warmth, our very breath. Behind us, the woods stir. Branches snap, sharp cracks that echo like gunshots. Shapes emerge. Dozens of child-sized silhouettes climbing after us. They spread out across the slope, moving with fluid agility, ascending toward the fence. Their faces are blank, smooth skin stretched over tiny skulls, no features. As they climb, their toes dig into the earth, leaving prints glistening red in the red light of our hazard flashers. I shout at the rookie, "Up, move!" We hoist ourselves back over, injured jaws on the splintered wood. On the turnout, the child silhouettes collect at the fence line, waiting. Above them loom the angular figures from the trucks. 6 of them now, like guardians patrolling a perimeter. I count the SUVs, 4, spacing themselves around the turnout like patrol posts. The rookie's breath rasps. "What are they doing?" He exhales. "Why?" A voice carried by wind and static. "They're guiding us." I recognize that voice. My voice. Emaciated, as if spoken through a cracked radio speaker. "Sergeant Marsh." The whisper drips across my mind. You know the road better than any. It trails off, replaced by the rain's roar. Footsteps shudder on the gravel behind the SUVs. I spin, blooming from the mist, headlights of 4 more unmarked cars. Older sedans, battered, crawl onto the pavement. The front windows roll down in unison. From each, a pair of eyes stares out, human, haunted, hollow. Faces I've seen before on patrol reports, missing persons. They lean far enough to whisper in my direction. "Where are you going?" Silence. The SUVs flick their taillights once, then gone. The sedan eyes vanish into the forest. All that remains is the static hum of rain and the tremor of earth beneath our feet. I press my hand to the fence post, a cool anchor, looking down at the empty turnout littered with prints. Ours, theirs, and the ghostly impressions of so many lost souls. Hawkins swears under his breath, fists clenched. The rookie whispers, "We have to choose." I turn back to the ravine path, slick, treacherous, unknown. Above us, the forest looms, hungry. Behind us, the road fractures under endless surveillance, and all around I feel them watching, waiting for my choice. The rain pulses like a heartbeat. Every fiber of my being screams to run, anywhere but here. Yet I stand, torn between the path of earth and the asphalt lifeline. Dawn had no business breaking through that storm. Yet, behind the veil of rain and fog, a pale light began to seep under the forest canopy, casting gray shadows across the slick asphalt and trembling leaves. I crouched at the edge of the turnout, the fence's splintered wood cutting into my palms, and watched the world hold its breath. Hawkins and the rookie flanked me, their silhouettes hunched against the pale horizon. All around, the forest stood sentinel, ancient pines dripping with water, their needles glistening like serrated blades. Every droplet was a small surprise, a warning that nothing here was static. The ground beneath us thrummed with unspoken energy, as though the earth itself had stories it refused to share. I took a shaky breath and spoke in a whisper that wasn't entirely my own voice. "We move on 3. They nodded, wide-eyed, faces drawn tight. Between the ravine below and the road ahead, choice bristled like barbed wire. 1. I pressed my palm flat against the fence, tasting rain and wood splinters on my tongue. The static swelled in my mind, a distant siren echoing through bone. 2. Hawkins shifted, boots sliding in gravel. He locked eyes with me, harboring every ounce of fear a 6-year veteran could carry. The static became a whisper. "Follow the road." 3. I vaulted the fence, boots finding purchase on the slippery slope. Hawkins and the rookie tumbled after, limbs tangled in vines. We slid down into darkness, impact jolting rib and spine. For a heartbeat, we lay together in the mud, 3 shapes pressed against earth, listening to the rush of storm water carving tiny rivers across the gravel turnout. When we stood, the sky had brightened enough to reveal our surroundings. We clung to tree trunks, staggering through ferns waist-high as thunder rolled distant, hollow. The ravine widened into a narrow valley, the road above a silver ribbon far overhead. I glanced back once. Empty forest, no sign of the turnout fence or the SUVs. It was as if that entire scene had been a half-remembered dream. Ahead, mud turned to gravel, the path sloping gently upward. We emerged onto a back road parallel to Route 47, an old logging track abandoned years ago. Patches of rusted guardrail hugged its edge, beyond which the valley plunged. Only moonlight and dawn angled weak beams through the trees, guiding us forward. We fell into a stiff silence, broken only by our breathing and the soft squelch of boots. Hawkins kept his torch aimed at the ground, illuminating shallow footprints. Ours, the phantom child prints, and new tracks. Adult-sized, bare feet imprinting alongside the smaller ones. They guided us, leading deeper into the wood, as though beckoning us to some final destination. The rookie's voice tremored. Why would they? I cut him off with a look. I had no answer. The forest gave nothing willingly. We followed, and the path curved around an ancient cedar, roots like gnarled fingers clutching roots. Resting against its trunk was a worn wooden crate, half buried in moss. Its lid lay ajar, revealing contents that hit me like a physical blow. 3 police badges, mine, Hawkins's, and the rookie's, arranged in a neat row on wet pine straw. Each glinted faintly, tarnished edges catching the pale light. I stepped forward, boots muffled by needles, to examine them. The badges bore no department name, blank except for our silhouettes etched into dull metal. My thumb pressed the rookie's badge. It felt unnaturally warm, pulsing like a heartbeat. Behind us, a twig snapped. I spun, flashlight skimming across the forest, catching movement at the periphery. Figures materialized, the tall, gaunt shapes, 3 of them, stepping into the low light. They stood in a triangular formation, silent as statues carved from bark. Gazes locked on us. One raised a long limb, thin, jointed too many times, and pointed at the crate. The second flicked its wrist toward the road far above. The third swayed, light catching on what looked like a second child's badge pinned to its chest. A small, corroded metal disc suspended by twine. The whistle came again, backward, a choked breath reversed. From the crate, the badges began to peel away, floating on their own, suspended by raindrops clinging like invisible threads. They hovered, spinning, aligning to face us. Hawkins stuttered, This isn't possible." I swallowed hard. It's here to show us. I stepped toward the badges, heart pounding, palms cold. The forest held its breath. The rain softened to a gentle patter, hesitating. In that lull, I realized they weren't threatening. They weren't hunters. They were guardians of the road, keepers of forgotten stops. The tall figure shifted, a gesture of release, and the badges glided back into the crate. The lid slammed shut, locking with a hollow click. Then, without another sound, the figures melted into the mist, as though dissolving into the very air. Left alone, the crate trembled, then sank slowly into the earth, swallowed by moss and ferns until all that remained was a mound of decaying leaves. The rookie exhaled, voice barely audible. "What do we do now?" I stood, mind racing. Somewhere deep in me, a spark lit, a memory of training, of responsibility. We finished the stop. He met my gaze, confusion and determination warring in his eyes. "How?" I pointed upward. "Back to the highway." We climbed the slope, branches tearing at jackets, mud sucking at boots. The valley behind us sank deeper into shadow. Above, the back road faded into the forest's shadow. Yet, faint through the canopy, I could glimpse the high beams of Route 47 miles away, pulsing like a beacon. Every step toward the highway felt like crossing the boundary between worlds. The routine world of lights, radios, and backup, and this other realm of whispered commands, missing badges, and impossible guardians. When we broke through the tree line, we found ourselves on the gravel shoulder of 47, mile marker 117, cracked and leaning. Our cruisers stood there, unmarked driver's doors ajar, engines off, lights dim. Hawkins's and the rookie's badges were pinned back to their uniforms, everything seemingly restored, save for the panic in their eyes. Dispatch crackled over the radio. 1934. Do you copy? Respond. I grabbed the mic. My voice was steady now, measured. 1934. Here. Stop complete. Moving to secure scene. Hawkins and the rookie climbed in, doors shutting with clicking echoes. As we pulled onto the highway, the rain returned in earnest, erasing our tracks. The forest behind us swallowed the back road, concealing the crate, the guardians, and the badges lost to time. We re-entered the realm of blinking lights and protocols, but I knew the boundary was thin. Tonight, we'd learned the road had memories, and it didn't forget. I switched off the overhead lights and killed the siren's readiness switch. Through the windshield, the asphalt stretched ahead, wet, polished, humming with possibility. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white. In the rearview mirror, I thought I saw movement, shapes gliding between the trees, watching as we drove away. Then they were gone, absorbed by the forest's shadow. I exhaled, heart steady now against the storm's drum. But deep down, I felt their eyes lingering, waiting for the next stop that turned into something else. The cruiser's engine stuttered to life beneath the steady downpour, a reluctant beast roused from sleep. The rain-slick road stretched before us, a dark river of asphalt reflecting the squad car's red and blue glow. Hawkins sat rigid in the passenger seat, fingers drumming on his thigh. The rookie's eyes never left the rearview mirror, searching for shadows that might trail us. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles dulled to bone, pulse thrumming like a second engine in my wrists. The rain was a constant presence now, a living wall of motion that blurred the tree line to misty ruins. I tapped the mic. Dispatch, 1934 en route to station. Request additional units at Skyline Ridge turnout. Possible evidence. No response beyond static and distant thunder. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the storm's rhythm soothe the adrenaline's edge. When I opened them, the windshield was empty. No tail lights, no silhouettes, just the rhythm of wipers sweeping sorrow across glass. We passed mile marker 118. The world felt heavy, each mile a pulse of dread beating through the patrol car. The rookie finally spoke, voice low. What exactly are we reporting? No bodies, no suspects, just missing people and weird tracks? He glanced at me, anxiety creasing his brow. An honest report, rookie. Describe what we saw and heard, I replied, eyes fixed on the road ahead. All of it. He exhaled, staring at his lap, then clicked on the in-car recorder. Officer Hakshu reporting. At approximately 0200 hours, I conducted a traffic stop on an F-150 on Route 47 at mile marker 114. The driver was missing. Footprints led into the forest. Backup arrived, but the driver was nowhere to be found. His voice trailed as we passed deep-set culverts, their arches yawning like silent witnesses. I wondered if anyone on the other end would believe the rest. The distorted voices on the radio, our names disappearing. The black SUVs with twisted occupants, the phantom child tracks, the crate of erased badges, the guardians dissolving into mist. It felt impossible, yet every bruise on my memory gnawed at me with authenticity. The rookie paused the recorder. Hawkins cleared his throat. Sergeant, there's something at the next turn. He pointed through the passenger side window. I flicked my headlights to high beam and saw it. A lone sedan facing us across the median strip. Headlights off, engine idling. Its silhouette was familiar. An older model Crown Victoria. A police cruiser almost. Rooftop light bar obscured, door panels plain. It sat there, engine humming, heat distorting the rain-soaked air above its hood. I slowed to a crawl. The sedan's driver's side window slid down with a pneumatic hiss. A figure leaned out, gloved hand resting on the door's edge. Rain dripped from the cuff onto the asphalt. I locked eyes with the figure. Even in shadow, I recognized the uniform. A patrol sergeant's cut. Stripes on the sleeve. a badge glinting in the low light. The nameplate read Marsh. My heart seized. I blinked and leaned forward. The marsh on the door was mine. The figure's posture, the stance, the tilt of the head, all unnervingly familiar. It raised its free hand in a deliberate wave, fingers stiff, joints bent at unnatural angles. Then it beckoned. 2 fingers curled inward, a silent summons. I glanced at Hawkins and the rookie, both stared slack-jawed. The phantom Marsh was motionless, save for that beckoning hand. My pulse thundered so loud it drowned the rain. My mouth went dry. Where was my voice? I squeezed the brake until the tires squealed. The phantom stepped inside the Crown Vic as though gliding, door closing without a sound. The headlights flicked on, blinding us for an instant, then cut. The tail lights glowed deep crimson, the only red in sight. Then the sedan eased forward, hugging the median before slipping into the rain-shrouded forest trail beside Skyline Ridge. It vanished without a trace. Dispatch crackled urgently. 1934, are you there? Respond. Static buzzed beneath the voice, warped, as though passing through layers of distortion. I keyed the mic, but nothing came out. I tried again, no response. I let out a breath I didn't realize I held and slammed my palm against the wheel. What the hell was that? The rookie swallowed hard. That was you. I whirled on him. What do you mean? He pointed to the door handle beside me. My headlight's beam landed on it. The handle, the latch. None of it existed. Just a hole in the metal frame where the handle should be, shaped like a missing tooth. The door edge was ragged, jagged metal curled inward, as though something, had ripped it off. My uniform, my badge, my name tag, vanished again in that single moment. Hawkins let out a strangled laugh. We keep losing pieces and you're still driving. He tapped the dashboard. Look, GPS, radio display, everything's offline. I stared at the blank panels. The car was ours. It looked like ours, but every interface was dead. No siren controls, no lights, no communications, just darkness behind tempered glass. A siren wailed in the distance, human, not electronic. Another patrol unit responding to our call, normal, real. The rookie fumbled for his collar mic. Switch to channel 3, he asked. I shook my head. It won't work. He nodded, deflated. Then what? A sudden jolt rocked the cruiser, hard enough to spin the wheel. The road lurched as if hit by a shockwave. Rain spattered across the windshield, obscuring everything but fleeting silhouettes. Figures darting through the woods on either side, 5 pairs of legs moving in unison. They passed in a blur, synchronized, silent, then disappeared. My stomach twisted. I stomped the accelerator. The tires kissed the wet pavement as we surged forward, lights off, engine roaring through the storm. Miles of gloom swallowed us. The siren in the distance was closer now, fading in and out as though echoing through tunnels. Then the storm broke open. Lightning slashed the sky, momentarily illuminating the entire forest in stark white. In that flash, I saw the road ahead littered with fallen branches, smashed under an unseen weight. A large tree lay across the lane, snapped at its base, its trunk blocking our path. I slammed on the brakes. The cruiser fishtailed, wheels locked. The rookie shouted. Hawkins cursed. Rain buried branches against the grill. For a second, we teetered at the edge of disaster. And then, all at once, the branches moved. They writhed, shifted as though alive, sliding off the road in plumes of mist. The tree rolled aside. The path cleared, precisely in time for us to coast through unscathed. I swallowed, adrenaline spiking anew. What the... The road ahead curved gently back toward the highway. Mile marker 119 glowed through the rain, neon paint clinging to wet metal. We crossed under its number, engines still idling, when the rain eased into a gentle patter, almost conciliatory. Dispatch finally broke through the static. 1934, you there? Status? My hand hovered over the mic. My voice felt foreign. I closed my eyes, drawing on every ounce of composure I had left. 1934 here, I managed. Road blockage removed, resuming patrol. Hawkins exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders. The rookie flicked the recorder back on, voice trembling but steady. Section 5 complete. I nodded, steering back onto the highway. The forest receded behind us. Once again, a curtain of rain and shadow. Ahead lay open road, mile markers ticking upward. The storm had softened to a drizzle, and I could nearly believe the madness was over. But the storm never truly ends. It just changes in intensity. The haze of dawn was fading into a pale, brittle light as we cruised through the thinning rain, but exhaustion had hollowed out my bones. My hands trembled on the wheel, and every vibration of the chassis felt like a heartbeat I could no longer trust. Hawkins and the rookie huddled over the dash recorder, reviewing the playback in low mutters. I stared straight ahead at the gray ribbon of asphalt, my mind half lost in the static echoes of the past hours. We passed mile marker 121, and I caught a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, a flash of something pale darting between the trees. My head snapped to the passenger window. Nothing, just dripping branches. But the blood drained from my face when I saw the instant reflection in the glass. A small, pale hand pressed flat against the sheet metal. Fingertips splayed wide, palm on the outside. Before I could wrench the door lock, it vanished into the dripping shadows. Hawkins, I breathed, voice ragged. He looked up from the recorder, blood draining to his feet. I pointed at the window. He clenched his jaw and nodded, rolling down his own window. He leaned out, peering into the tree line, flashlight arm extended. The beam sliced into wiry brush, revealing nothing but fallen logs and shrubs slick with rain. Yet at the edge of the light, I saw soil disturbed, a child-sized palm print, clear against the muddy earth. "Just one more time," I said under my breath. The rookie slipped off his seatbelt and crossed to the passenger side. Together, we stepped into the downpour, boots sinking into slick gravel. The cruiser's engine idled, lights flashing useless warnings into the mist. The air was heavy, moisture clinging to our uniforms, our hair plastered to our foreheads. The wind chafed at my skin, carrying the tang of wet pine and something else, something coppery, like blood warmed by sun. We moved in tandem toward the trees, flashlights converging on the print. I knelt, pressing a gloved finger into the damp outline. The edges were crisp, as though freshly made. Behind us, the cruiser's lights pulsed faintly, unaware of our departure. I rose and scanned the forest. Branches bent forward, like hands reaching out to seize us. The rookie shivered. "Sergeant, it's like they're inviting us in." His breath fogged in the beam. I nodded. "Then we go, stay close." We plunged into the woods, branches snatching at jackets, roots grabbing boots. The sound of our breaths and footsteps swallowed by the storm. The trees closed behind us, pine needles shredding the world into shifting shapes of shadow and rain. After 100 yards, the trail ended. We stood in a small clearing ringed by monstrous firs, their trunks slick with moss and rain. In the center lay a shallow pit, lined with rocks stained dark. Within the pit, objects floated in a shallow puddle. A tarnished child's locket, its chain knotted around a blood-damp cloth. a battered flashlight blinking weakly, the tip of a patrol baton half submerged, and at the bottom, something pale and curved, too smooth to be a rock. I dropped to my knees at the edge of the pit, shining my light across the items. The locket opened at my touch, revealing a faded photograph. 2 children, arm in arm, smiles frozen in time. The boy on the right had eyes so familiar I had to look away. A child I'd never known. Yet I recognized every nuance of his lips, the arch of his brow. The rookie gasped. My locket, my sister's. She died 16 years ago. His voice cracked. Hawkins swallowed audibly. And that flashlight, that's mine. He tapped the battered torch handle. I recognized the scuffs, where someone had scraped paint off the head during a daytime call. My heart pounded. Why, who did this? A voice drifted on the wind. To remember us. It was the same haunting whisper I had heard before, but amplified, as if coming from every direction. The rain paused, as though waiting for my response. I gritted my teeth and stood, pointing my flashlight at the pit. Tell us what you want. Silence. Then movement. Thin, jerking shapes sliding out from behind the firs. The child silhouettes, dozens of them, bare feet treading on pine needles. They poured into the clearing, encircling us. None spoke. Their faces were void of features, blank canvases of pale flesh. Each carried something. A stray cell phone, a child's shoe, a lanyard with a broken badge. They laid their offerings into the pit, stepping back to let the next approach. One by one, they presented their tokens. The rookie's sister's locket, Hawkins's flashlight, my own lost police badge, etched with my name and service number, now muddied beyond legibility. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my name tag, a sliver of plastic bearing my name. It flickered in the beam, then crumbled into dust at my touch. The clearing filled with muted sobs. No sound, but a trembling vibration through the soles of my boots. My throat tightened. The children raised translucent arms, pointing at us, their blank faces tilted in perfect unison. A final figure stepped from the shadows, taller, the gaunt, jointed shape of the forest guardians. It held out a slender finger toward the pit. Then, in a motion so fluid it seemed woven from mist, it traced an arc across the clearing, directing our attention upward. I followed its gesture to the canopy ceiling. There, carved into the bark of the oldest fir, a sequence of symbols. I recognized them from dreamlike scribbles in that hidden dark room so many years ago. The symbols formed a path, a map leading away from the clearing, up the ravine to a place I could not yet see. At the end of the sequence was a single symbol, an arrow pointing beyond the edge of the woods back toward the road. Then, as one, the children lowered their arms, and the forest sighed. Rain resumed its relentless assault, washing tears from branches. The guardians melted into the shadows once more, leaving the pit spotless. Tokens vanished, as though they'd never existed. I stood in the wet, staring at empty earth. Hawkins and the rookie emerged from their stupor beside me. The clearing was exactly as unremarkable as any other patch of woods, except for the carved symbols, cryptic and earnest, glowing dimly in the mist. I turned to the path indicated, a narrow, weed-choked game trail ascending steeply toward the ridge. Without a word, we followed. Branches ripped at our uniforms, rain pooled in our collars, but we climbed, drawn by something deeper than fear. The voices in the wind guided our steps, whispering, "Remember, remember." And every footfall felt like a promise to those lost, a vow we might yet uncover what the road refused to let go. With every meter gained, the forest lightened, and the road's pulse beneath us throbbed louder, as if the asphalt itself were calling my name. At the top of the rise, we emerged onto the edge of the highway shoulder, mile marker 122, half buried in moss. There, in the pale wash of morning, lay a single name tag, my name, intact, glinting in the raindrops. I knelt, lifted it, breath catching. Beneath it, carved into the road's shoulder, were two sets of tracks, one my boot print, one small and bare. They led away down Route 47 toward the sunrise, and beyond it to whatever waited at the end of the stops that never ended. We plunge back onto Route 47 just as the road yawns open into dawn's pale glare. The cruiser's engine hum shifts in pitch as I merge into traffic, an absurd normalcy after the forest's unreal vigil. Hawkins slides out of the seatbelt slowly, as though emerging from a trance. The rookie leans forward, pressing record. My eyes trace the road's slick ribbon, flanked by still dripping pines, and I realize the final stop awaits just up ahead. Mile marker 123 looms, a battered slab of concrete, its numbers worn but legible. I guide the car to a slow halt on the gravel shoulder. The rain has faded into a light drizzle, cold and insistent. The forest's edge still clings close, dark firs whispering secrets they refuse to share. Beyond the marker, the highway stretches toward the foothills, brightening with the promise of routine. I kill the engine and sit in a hush that's louder than any storm. My pulse thrums in my ears, matching the beat of the wipers slowing to a steady clack. Hawkins exhales, voice a rasp of disbelief. This is it, right? He means the final stop, the last riddle the road has for us. The rookie's fingers hover over the recorder's pause button but stay poised, ready to capture lifetimes of confession in a single breath. I nod and stand, boots echoing on metal floorboard. Each step releases small clouds of mist from my suit, ashes of the nightmare we've traversed. The rookie exits, coat collar high, and Hawkins follows. The trio assembles before the mile marker, its concrete cool under my gloved palm. The marker reads 123, do not pass. A warning once meant for speeders, now a command laced with deeper meaning. We step into the wet gravel, flashlight swinging low. The air shivers with memory. The toothless children's faces, the half-voiced commands, the forest guardian's silent hymns. I survey the highway, 2 lanes divided by a broken white line, no handle to steady against, nowhere to hide. Yet I feel the forest's breath at my back, urging me to look forward at what lies beyond. I raise my flashlight. Its beam ignites a slender path of gravel leading off the road, toward a narrow underpass. The culvert beneath the highway, its interior streaked with decades of water stains. A trickle of rain has carved a shallow stream through its center, turning loose stones into miniature rapids. I stare into the tunnel's mouth and feel a pull, something at its end calling. Hawkins casts his light to either side. The walls are etched with graffiti, initials and dates, hearts scratched by restless lovers, runes that twist into letters. Among them are new marks, the child's tracks, bare toes pressing into concrete, leading inside. I follow, boots splashing in the shallow water. The rookie trails behind, recorder held high. Hawkins moves last, shoulders hunched, eyes darting. Inside, the air turns cooler, damp, and alive with trickles of rain. My beam picks out symbols carved into the walls, an arrow pointing deeper, a circle bisected by a line, a shape like the outline of a badge. Every symbol resonates with memory. I press my palm to the wall where the badge outline lies. The stone is smooth, hollow just so, as if waiting to receive something. A drip echoes off stone somewhere ahead. I step forward. The walls narrow until I must turn sideways to squeeze through. The stream deepens to ankle height, cold enough that I can't feel my toes. The tunnel slopes downward, drawing us into darkness that feels alive, undulating at the edges of the flashlight's glow. Suddenly, the pulse of the road above fades, replaced by the murmur of echoes. Footsteps not our own, shuffling, cautious, then urgent. The rookie's breathing quickens. Hawkins grips my arm. We pause. The tunnel forks, left and right, each path veering into deeper shadow. The child tracks split accordingly, 4 tiny prints on each branch. A whisper threads through the darkness. Which way? It is my voice, fragile, uncertain, yet every fiber of me knows it comes from the tunnel's throat. I swallow. We can't turn back. The entrance seals behind us with a dull groan, the highway's hum extinguished. I raise my light to the fork. Left path, graffiti shows a heart with initials scratched through. The prints there look fresher. Right path, the badge outline etched deeper, a smear of red across its center. The whisper comes again, but not from me this time. Choose justice. Its tone is neither kind nor cruel, simply insistent. Hawkins exhales. Sergeant, I hold up a hand, steps forward, passing the rookie, following the route marked by child prints. The water rises to mid-calf. My boots slip. I steady myself on the algae-slick wall. The corridor narrows again, so tight my shoulders brush the wet stone. Then the path opens onto a chamber sculpted by time. An ancient pumping station, long abandoned, its machinery rusted into skeletons. The arches above vanish into shadows. In the center of the chamber sits a concrete dais, stained dark. More symbols, the badge outline, the child's footprint, the road marker arrow. On the dais rests a single object, a polished badge identical to mine, glinting as though newly minted. I approach, heart hammering. My reflection shimmers on its surface, fractured by scratches. I lift the badge. The metal is impossibly cold. As I clutch it, a distant toll echoes, a bell deep and hollow. Shadows shift at the chamber's rim. Silhouettes of children standing still, heads tilted up. Their eyes are pits of shadow. They hold candles, tiny flames glowing blue in the gloom. The hush is thick enough to taste. I look at the rookie. His recorder dangles from his hand, forgotten. I meet Hawkins's gaze. He nods. Together, we place our hands upon the badge, and the chamber lights up. Icicle lamps along the walls flicker to life, electrified by unseen currents. The machinery groans, ancient gears turning. Water cascades from rusted pipes into shallow pools. The children's candles burn brighter, illuminating the arches high above. Then, in a whisper that shakes every stone, the shadows speak. Remember us. Remember every stop. Remember the lost and the routine undone. Their voices weave into a chorus. I step back, eyes wide, as the badge slips from my grasp, melting upward into mist. The dais crackles, the symbols glow, and the water ripples with spectral shapes. Footprints of officers and children dancing in patterns of memory. The whispering crescendos, then cuts off. Silence. The candles extinguish themselves one by one. The lights flicker and die. The chamber falls back into darkness, punctuated only by the drip of water. I yank my flashlight on, its beam piercing the gloom. The dais is empty. The badge is gone. The tracks vanish in the rippling puddle. The children's silhouettes have retreated into the walls, leaving only empty arches. Behind me, I hear the tunnel entrance shift. Light floods in, morning sun, real and warm. I turn to see the rookie's face, pale as stone, eyes glimmering with unshed tears. Hawkins stands beside him, shoulders slumped. We climb back through the narrowing passages. The river of water recedes, footprints fading. Behind us, the chamber stays silent, its secrets intact. Emerging onto the shoulder beside mile marker 124, we find the road alive with traffic, motorists unaware of the undercroft beneath their wheels. The cruiser is parked perfectly between two semi-trailers. The rookie's recorder click stops. He exhales. Hawkins keys the mic. 1934, secure scene. Dispatch answers immediately. Routine protocol resumes as if nothing extraordinary occurred. Our names flicker on screen, typed without hesitation. I place my hand on the hood of the cruiser. The metal is cold but solid. I close my eyes. When I open them, the world is ordinary again. Semi-trucks roaring by, the sky clear, the pines silent sentinels. But I know what lies below. The chamber, the dais, the children's voices, the badge that vanished into mist. I slide back into the driver's seat. The rookie and Hawkins settle beside me. I shoulder my locker keys, ready to end my shift. The road hums beneath the tires as we merge back onto the highway, the asphalt alive with the promise of routine. Yet, as we drive away, I glance in the rearview mirror. There, on the shoulder behind us, the dais sits exposed in the morning light, outside the tunnel's mouth. The polished badge I never touched gleams atop it, waiting for the next officers to remember. And I wonder, when they pull over, will they know why the road keeps its secrets? I ease the cruiser onto the gravel shoulder, heartbeat thumping loud enough that for a moment I thought the engine had died. Rain drummed a steady tattoo on the windshield as I killed the wipers and killed the radio speaker too. Static felt safer than silence, but tonight even the static seemed alive, prickling at the edges of my skull. I unhooked my seatbelt and slid the car door open, stretched my legs, feeling the cold seep through my uniform trousers. The glow of red and blue danced across slick pavement ahead, that busted headlamp a perfect lure under a broken streetlight. I lifted my flashlight, stepped into the haze. Gravel crunched beneath my boots, each step echoing in the void. The truck sat angled at the edge of the road, hood popped as if wounded. A half-eaten burger lay abandoned on the driver's floorboard, grease glistening in the dim beam. I called out, voice swallowed by the rain. "Evening? Everything all right?" No answer. I tapped the window, expecting the usual jolt of startled eyes, a flinch, an apology. Instead, I got stillness. I circled the grimy cab, spotlit fog drifting through the beams. Then I saw her. A single white sneaker, half slid off the bed of the truck, dangling over the edge. I lifted the flashlight higher, no body, no legs, just the shoe hanging in midair, toe pointed down. Chest tightening, I bent, yanked at the truck bed's tailgate. It fell open with a soft thud, rain sluicing in. Empty. No sign a person had climbed in. My breath hitched. I straightened, scanned the dark tree line. Mist curled between the pines like fingers beckoning. The radio crackled. "Unit 12, be advised, 10-4. No, wrong channel. I switched knobs, fingers trembling. Static again, no dispatch. I flicked the dome light on, peered inside the cab. Under the driver's seat, I found a crumpled photo. A blonde girl, tears on her cheeks, mouth half open in mid-scream. I turned it over, saw only the word "remember" scrawled in red ink. My pulse spiked. I jammed the photo into my pocket, stepped back as a horn honked, distant, urgent. The truck's horn. It came from beyond the haze, down the road. I spun toward the noise as headlights carved a path through the mist. A sedan roared past, mud splattering the shoulder. I waved it down, but it surged forward, then vanished around the curve. I raised my flashlight and followed for a beat, but the truck was gone, swallowed by rain, no skid marks, no skid. Just the black strip of asphalt, silent again. Shivering, I climbed back into the cruiser and mashed the heater. steam fogged the windshield. I fished out the photo, inhaled its sour scent, air freshener and damp paper. The girl's eyes met mine, that hollow terror. My radio crackled again, this time a voice I recognized. Dispatch. 12. We just got a call. A single vehicle crash at mile marker 14. Vehicle matching your description. I glanced at the odometer. 14 miles back along this stretch. On it, I replied, voice tighter than I liked. I peeled off, lights flashing through the rain. By the time I arrived, the sedan lay half submerged in a shallow ditch. No blood, no bodies, just that same woman crouched at the roadside, coat slick, shoulders heaving. I cut the engine, grabbed flashlight. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" I asked. She turned, face streaked with mud and mascara. "He's here," she whispered, voice cracked. "He won't let me go." I scanned the ditch. No footprints, no evidence of another person. Just the car door ajar, seatbelt still latched around empty upholstery. My stomach nodded. "You saw someone?" I probed. She nodded, backing away until she tripped over the ditch's lip. Rain sloshed around her boots. I reached to steady her. As I did, I caught movement, swift and slight, at the edge of the beam. Two pale hands against the dark glass of the back window. I spun, flashlight slamming into the fog. The figure vanished. Gone. No sound but the rain. I shone the light through the back seat, empty, nothing. Just damp upholstery and a single pale footprint on the floor mat. My hands shook as I radioed backup. Unit 12 to dispatch. Requesting EMS and units at mile marker 14. Female motorist reports an accessory, possible second party involved. I paused, listening. No replies. I pounded the mic. Dispatch, come back. Static. A cold dread settled in my gut. I realized two things at once. I was alone, and I was off the grid. I looked down the ditch again, flashlight beam trembling, and this time I saw red. A smear of paint, or was it blood, on the sedan's bumper. I flexed my glove fingertip around it. It smeared like crimson water. Every instinct screamed to run, but I stayed. I inched closer. Under the taillight, the word routine was carved into the steel, rough edges catching the beam. Routine. 6 letters that twisted in my mind. Every traffic stop, every call, they'd all been routine until they weren't. I backed away, heart a drum, and as I did, my radio crackled one more time, low and distant. "Officer Hale, why won't you just—" The words slurred, warped by static. "Why won't you just remember?" My breath hitched. I dropped to one knee, trying to pinpoint the voice, but the rain swallowed its origin. Behind me, the cruiser door slammed shut. I jerked around, no one there. Then the sedan's horn blared, loud and frantic, shaking the ditch banks. I turned back to the car, the engine thrummed. The woman had vanished again. In her place, perched on the seat, sat a single white sneaker, the other nowhere in sight. And pinned beneath it, that photo, now wet, corners curling, of the little blonde girl, eyes still screaming, drenched in the night's rain. My head spun. Something whispered in the roar of the storm. Routine. I glanced toward the road, empty, endless. Ahead, the highway lights winked blind. Behind, every drop of rain seemed to hiss my name. I rose, hand hovering over the holster. I wanted to believe this was a mistake, a prank. Anything but the truth my gut knew to be real. Then, through the wiper's slap, I saw headlights barreling toward me, no reduction in speed. I yelled, waving arms. They didn't slow. My pulse seized. The cruiser rocked as the vehicle whipped past, water spraying like a wave. I fell back, heart in my throat. Tires screamed. Then, suddenly, the lights vanished into the mist as fast as they came. I scrambled for the cruiser, thumb over the unlock button. The engine caught with a roar. I slammed it into drive. As I sped off, I glanced in the rearview mirror. There, in the ditch beside the road, stood a figure. A man in a dark uniform, helmet glinting, my own face staring back at me. Mouth twisted in a silent scream. Then he raised a hand, palm flat, as if waving goodbye. I don't remember hitting the brakes. My vision tunneled. The cruiser skidded, tires carving spikes into the wet asphalt. I jerked the wheel, fishtailing. The last thing I saw before the world blurred was that pale handprint on the window, waiting for me when the storm finally passed. I jabbed at the windshield wiper switch until the blades carved a clear path, something, or someone, pressing behind me in the seat I'd just vacated. My breath hitched. The photo of that little girl, soaked through, lay stuck to the center console, edges fluttering like desperate hands reaching out. My hand hovered over the door handle, every nerve screaming to bolt, but something rooted me in place. Duty, training, fear of what I might find if I turned my back. I inhaled, forced my legs to move. The cruiser door clicked open. I slid out, flashlight in hand, every slosh of rain beneath my boots setting my teeth on edge. I circled the vehicle, eyes tracing the dented fender, the carved word routine, and finally the back window. The pale hand, my reflection, was gone. In its place, the interior was emptier than before. Heart hammering, I reached for the rear door handle. It swung inward on a squeak that cut through the downpour. My beam found the back seat floor. Another photo, this time of a woman's face, wide-eyed, mouth frozen mid-scream. I blinked. She looked familiar. My pulse did a sick twist. That face, she'd been in my cousin's missing persons report 2 years ago. The one that went cold. My glove closed over the picture. Confusion and dread collided in my gut. I tossed the photo onto the roof and leapt back as it slid off into the mud. My flashlight beam danced across the road, catching something ahead. Orange flares blinking at the curve. A stalled school bus, no lights on, doors ajar, its empty shell leaning into the darkness. I cursed under my breath. 3 years ago, I'd responded to an abandoned school bus on the same stretch. The driver had been gone, the children never boarded. They found tire tracks leading into the bog. Bodies never recovered. A shiver ran through me. I sprinted toward the bus. My boots sank into waterlogged gravel. The rain blurred my vision, turned the world into smeared strokes of gray. I gestured wildly for backup. Still nothing but static returned. I reached the bus's side, pressed my ear to the cold metal. Hushed voices? Number just the storm's roar. I yanked at the door. It creaked open. Inside, rows of empty seats faded into shadows. The aisle carpet was sodden, water pooling where the steps met the floor. A lone backpack lay on the driver's seat, my own department badge tape slapped across the front pocket. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the flashlight. Badge tape? Why? Questions spiraled. Was this about me? About the stops I'd made, the calls I'd taken? Had I left something behind that night 3 years ago? I shoved aside the driver's door, knife-edge panic fueling me. The rain pelted down, slicking the bus's roof. I climbed the steps, flashlight probing. The seats were torn open, stuffing splayed across the floor like pale guts. Heads of dolls littered the aisle, plastic faces cracked, glass eyes staring blankly. A sudden metallic clang made me freeze. Something rolled on the floor behind me. My cruiser's hubcap, water-speckled, coming to rest at the rear door. I spun. The exit door was closing on its own, squeezing the light until the aisle vanished. My breath stalled. I kicked at the door. It swung open, and I fell backward onto the muddy ground. The flashlight flew from my grip. I scrambled to retrieve it. Beam settled on the hubcap where I'd landed. Etched into the metal was the date, October 12th, 2011. The day Officer James Merritt discovered that door in the evidence room. The day I'd read those file boxes, studied the photographs of missing persons. The day I'd vowed never again to ignore the signs. I bolted upright, lunging for the flashlight. The bus door slammed shut with a final, resonant bang that shook dust from the eaves above me. I pointed the light at the window. 7 faces stared back, the missing, the dead, eyes lifeless. I heard breath, deep, ragged, behind me. I spun, flashlight slicing the dark. A figure stood just beyond the beam's edge. Tall, shoulders hunched, uniform brim dipping over eyes I couldn't see. It raised one hand, pointed at me. In its palm lay that little girl's photo. Dry, pristine, untouched by rain. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The figure stepped forward. A raspy whisper curled through the downpour. Routine. One word that dripped with accusation and pity. I jerked the beam to its face. It was me, my eyes hollow, ringed with exhaustion. My mouth set in a grim line of regret. The apparition tilted its head, and the voice cracked. You forgot. I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold, insistent. I whirled, but no one was there. My radio lit up, static, then one clear word, remember. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the bus, the ditch, the deserted road. The apparition flickered and vanished. In that instant, every doubt, every sleepless night, every unsolved case came crashing in. This wasn't about random stops or bad luck. It was about me. The things I'd ignored, the memories I'd buried, the life I'd sacrificed to a promise I couldn't keep. I looked down at my hands, mud-caked, shaking. The little girl's photo slipped out of my pocket, landing face up in the gravel. Her eyes met mine. No tears this time. Only the quiet demand. Remember me. I knew then I'd never leave. Not until I remembered and made things right. Not until I faced the stops that went wrong, the ones I'd let go. The ones that hadn't ended when I wrote them off as routine. And as the rain poured, I heard behind me a soft scrape. Boots on gravel. I dared not turn. I only whispered into the storm. I remember. My breath came ragged as I stared at that photograph in the mud. Its glossy surface cracked like the memory I'd tried to bury. Every fiber of my uniform prickled with cold dread as I realized I was standing on ground soaked with more than just rain. The highway, the bus, the truck. They were markers on a map of my own buried sins, stops I'd made and forgotten. The people I'd walked away from expecting routine to protect me. But routine had betrayed me. I snapped back to the moment, the rain sluicing down my collar, washing away the photo's curled edges until the image softened into nothing. A distant siren wailed, too faint for backup, more like a ghostly echo of the calls I'd never answered. Lightning flared, strobing the road in stark relief. The ditch, the silent bus, and the endless ribbon of a highway disappearing into the storm. I turned my back on the wreckage and limped toward my cruiser, each step feeling like trudging through quicksand. My radio crackled with static, then a single phrase clear as a bell. Officer Hale, you know what to do. No dispatch ID, no origin, just my name and that cruel command. My hand trembled as I reached for the door handle. I glanced over my shoulder. The bus windows were dark, but I could swear I saw movement. A small hand pressing against the glass, fingertips splayed as if begging. I choked back a sob. Climbing into the driver's seat, I jammed the door shut and locked it. The engine roared to life, but I didn't dare leave the light on. Light gave the shape to horrors. Instead, I opened the driver's side window a crack and leaned out, a spotlight in hand, scanning the ditch. My beam caught the bus's wheel, spinning with no driver, mud flinging outward as if someone had tossed a stone. I swallowed hard, drew breath, and called into the darkness. "Who's there? Show yourself." Silence, save for the rain. Then a soft voice, unmistakably that of a little girl. "Remember me?" The words floated from the tree line, impossibly close yet beyond reach. My flashlight swung toward the sound, beam slicing through the mist. Empty roadside, swaying grass, no child. The voice came again, this time whisper soft, drawn out. Mem. Burr." My heart thundered. Memories ripped through me. The stolen glance at a frightened kid in the backseat of a car, the file I'd marked inactive, the name I'd read once and dismissed. Lily. I pressed my palm to the steering wheel, inhaled the leather's cold scent, and felt tears sting my eyes. I wasn't just an observer. I was part of this tapestry of half-seen horrors, each thread a reminder of my own negligence. Then the hubcap skidded across the road again, turned slowly on its edge, coming to rest by my tire. I stepped out, flashlight in hand, and approached. The date stamped on the metal glowed in the beam. October 12th, 2011. My mind reeled. The day James Merritt made his discovery. The day I vowed to hunt the truth. But I'd lost track of that promise somewhere between shift changes and coffee breaks. I knelt, brushing mud from the date until it gleamed. "I remember," I whispered, voice thick. The hubcap spun once more, then stilled. Behind me, the bus door creaked open. I turned sharply, no one there. The intercom speaker on my belt crackled to life. "Routine," it hissed. The single word shattered the night. I dropped to one knee, clutching the beam that trembled in my fist. Lightning split the sky in two. In that stark flash, I saw them. 7 faces pressed against the bus windows, eyes hollow, mouths open in silent screams. Their hands reached out, fingers splayed against the glass. Then darkness swallowed them. I rose unsteadily, rain mingling with sweat in my hair. The cruiser's headlights flickered on their own, illuminating the ditch's edge. There, standing in the shallow water, was a girl in a faded dress, Lily. Her hair plastered to her face, eyes fixed on me, lips moving but no sound escaping. She tilted her head and smiled, the edges of her mouth curling in a gesture both innocent and mocking. She raised a finger to her lips. "Shh," then pointed down the highway, where another pair of headlights approached slowly. I could see the silhouette of a patrol cruiser, lights off, engine off, empty, and on its rear bumper, the same carved word, "Routine." I took a shaky step forward, flashlight trained on Lily, only to find the ditch empty. The rain fell harder, drumming an urgent beat. In my pocket, my radio emitted the faint whisper again. "Did you remember?" It cut out, leaving only the storm's roar. I climbed back into my cruiser, doors locking with a sense of finality. I sat, searing the moment into memory, the hubcap's date, Lily's smile, the 7 faces. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. The cruiser shuddered as I turned the key, but the engine stayed silent. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw those faces reflected in the back window. They leaned in close, mouths open as though to speak. But only silence emerged, and as the storm raged on, I realized the truth. Some traffic stops never end. The road doesn't let go, and routine is the lie we tell ourselves to keep moving forward. I exhaled, voice barely a whisper. Who am I protecting if I forget? Behind me, the radio crackled once more. a final question echoing through the static. Do you remember now? I slip the cruiser into gear and pull back onto the highway, tires hissing against the slick asphalt. Rain lashes the windshield in sheets, and I force myself to keep my eyes forward, one foot in front of the other, mile after mile, chasing answers I'm not sure I want. The dash clock reads 3:02 a.m., though I've lost track of time. Behind me, the empty road stretches into mist, haunted by hubcaps, bus doors, and phantom figures. I drive until my headlights catch the glint of a chain-link fence and a closed way station. I remember dispatch once warning me about trespassers cutting through the lot after hours. Troublemakers, they said. I kill the engine and kill the lights, heart pounding. In the silence, the rain sounds like a million tiny drums all around me. I step out, flashlight in one hand, service pistol in the other. The cold seizes my lungs. The lot is an expanse of oil-slick concrete, abandoned scales towering like silent sentinels. I move between them, beam slicing darkness, until I come to a trailer parked at the far end, its faded logo of an old bakery nearly obscured by rust. The doors are locked with a heavy chain, but one link is cut, metal fracturing jaggedly. I crouch, inspect the cut, fresh, edges still sharp. A soft shuffle behind me makes me whip around. Nothing but the fence line. I shine the light along it. A man leans against the gates, coat dripping wet, head bowed. I call out, voice taut, "Hey, you can't be here. Step into the light." He straightens but doesn't move, shoulders sagging like he's carrying every sin I've ever buried. The beam settles on his face, mine. Same tired eyes glinting with fear. The realization knocks the air from my chest. I stumble backward. The figure steps forward. His hand reaches up, pressing a finger to his lips. Shh. Then he points across the yard, where the bakery trailer's doors rattle as though something inside is pushing out. I aim the flashlight back at the trailer. Rust flakes down. My radio hisses. Check in. I press the mic. Silence. I exhale, approach the doors. They swing inward at my touch, hinges squealing. Inside, the beam finds rows of empty bread racks, dust-coated, as though untouched in years. But footprints trail through the dust. Measured, single file, leading to the far wall. I follow them, stomach knotting tighter with each step. At the wall, my beam reveals 7 names scrawled in flour on the metal siding. Lily, Maria, Thomas, Diana, Alberto, Seamus, Jonah. My throat seizes. I don't know all those names, but I recognize some. Missing persons from cases I had signed off. Afternoons I'd scrawled inactive, voices I never returned. My training screamed to back away. Fear is the enemy of clarity, but I step closer. In the center of the floor lies a single hubcap, painted red, one block of letters scratched into its face. Routine. My reflection wavers. I kneel, turn it over. On the reverse, a date stamped, November 14th, 2011. The day Merritt broke into the hidden room. The day I read his testimony and vowed to expose the truth. I'd studied that case file at home, read every line by the dim light of my desk lamp. But after a week, I'd lost the drive. Routine had crept back in. A slow creak makes me whirl. The man, me, stands in the trailer entrance, hands tucked in coat pockets. He steps forward, eyes fixed on the hubcap. "You forgot," he whispers. "You chose routine." I want to shout, to demand why, but fear clips my voice. Rain seeps under the trailer floorboards, pooling around my boots. He lifts a hand and traces one name on the wall. Thomas. The letters smear, flour sliding, revealing a fresh smear of red beneath. My stomach twists. I glance at the crates behind me. Baked loaves still in their wrappers, untouched. Then I realize the flower trail is fresh. Someone has brought supplies here. Someone is maintaining this place. His form begins to blur, edges dissolving into the mist. He steps backward until he merges with the night. His fading voice echoes, "It's not too late. Remember." Then he's gone, and the trailer is empty. Only the rain remains, drumming a relentless dirge. I stand, soaked through, boots heavy in the water. The hubcap slips from my fingers, clattering into the puddle. The names on the wall blur as the flood of rainwater washes them away. In the dim light, I see a new name, faintly etched on the door's inner edge. Hale. My name. I stumble out, heart hammering, and dash back to the cruiser. Fumbling with keys, I jump inside, lock the doors. The engine turns over and headlights blaze across the lot. But where the trailer stood, there is only darkness. No trailer, no fence. Nothing but a flat patch of sodden grass shining in the rain. I drive off without looking back, hands shaking on the wheel. As I navigate the curve onto Route 47, the reflection in the rearview mirror catches my eye. The little blonde girl, Lily, bows slightly as though bidding farewell, and disappears into the mist. My radio crackles one last time, a whisper cutting through the static. "Are you awake now?" I swallow past the lump in my throat, fingers tightening on the wheel. No answer comes. Routine is gone, and I am wide awake. A mile down the highway, the rain lightened to a mist that clung to my coat like spider silk. My cruiser hunched in the rear view, lights off, engine silent. An empty shell I'd abandoned in my frantic flight from that phantom lot. Up ahead, Oak Hollow Bridge arched over a ribbon of black water. I'd crossed it 1,000 times on patrol. Tonight, it felt like a threshold. I killed the headlights as I crested the span, rolling into darkness so complete the road vanished beneath my tires. I eased off the brake, letting the cruiser drift until only the engine's rumble marked my passage. Halfway across, my radio crackled again. Static laced with a child's laughter so soft I thought I'd imagined it. I froze, hands clenched on the wheel. The laughter came again, circling me, echoing off the guardrails. I flicked on the dome light. Shadows pooled in every corner. The bridge's steel beams groaned under the weight of the night. I reached into my pocket for that first photograph, the one that started it all, but it was gone. No folded edges pressing against my thigh, no girl's face staring up at me. My pulse spiked. Ahead, a pair of headlights blinked into view, not pursuing, but waiting, stationary, tucked just beyond the bridge's end. I didn't recognize the make of the vehicle. Boxy frame, dark windows. I rolled to a stop a few yards before it. Engine idling low. The mist curled around the beams, turning them into twin lanterns floating in the gloom. I flicked on my flashlight and stepped out. Rain-slick boots on pavement. The night air tasted of cold iron and regret. I walked toward the waiting silhouette. Each step felt heavier, like wading through water instead of walking. The cruiser's engine faded behind me. When I reached the front of the other vehicle, I swept the beam across its grille. No badge, no markings. Just a plate reading, "Remember." My breath caught. I raised my light to the windshield. Inside, someone sat in the driver's seat, but only half seen. A hooded figure, shoulders bowed, face obscured by shadow. I called out, voice raw, "Who's there?" Step into the light. Silence. Then the figure moved. A bare foot slid free from the driver's side footwell, followed by another, until a child. Wet hair plastered to her forehead, coat too large, sleeves dangling past her fingertips, stood on the pavement. Lily. My heart thudded so hard I could barely breathe. She lifted one finger to her lips. "Shh." She pointed behind me, to the bridge railing. I turned, nothing but white foam churning below. Then, from under the railing, dozens of pale hands emerged, arms clawing upward, writhing like drowned branches reaching for the sky. I froze, light trembling at their edges. Lily stepped forward, placing delicate footprints in the mist, each print blooming with red, like tiny blossoms of blood. She held out her hand, palm upward. I knelt, breath ragged, and she pressed something into my palm, a single hubcap, its face blank, smooth as glass. I turned it over, nothing stamped, nothing carved. My blood ran cold. The laughter returned, not through the radio this time, but all around me. Children's giggles, scratchy and hollow. I dropped the hubcap, and when it hit the asphalt, it exploded into shards of metal and rainwater, sending sparks dancing across the surface. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own boots, and hit the pavement hard. The blast of cold hit my bones as Lily knelt beside me, tears, real tears, sliding down her cheeks. "Remember," she whispered, voice breaking. "Remember all of us." Then she vanished, flash of white coat, swirl of mist, gone before my eyes could track. I scrambled up as thunder rolled overhead, the bridge groaning beneath my weight. The bridge lights flicked on by themselves, revealing an empty roadway. No cruiser, no child, no steel shackles, only the dark span stretching behind me, and the glitter of fallen hubcap shards scattered like stars across the asphalt. I heard footsteps behind me, soft, deliberate. I spun, flashlight slicing the night, but saw nothing. The trembling laughter died. In the sudden hush, I felt every past mistake surge forward, every case left cold, every family I'd left waiting, every hour I'd spent chasing routine. I reached out toward the bridge railing, half expecting another hand to grasp mine, but found only wet steel. The radio, lying face down in the puddle, crackled to life one final time. "Officer Hale, do you remember now?" The question drifted on the wind as I stood alone on that span, rain washing over me, turning hubcap shards into dull mirrors reflecting a fractured self. I continue down the highway until the mist parts, and I find myself at the edge of a small town I've never seen before. Lambert's Crossing, the sign reads, half buried in vines. The air here tastes different, thick with the scent of damp earth and rusting metal. My cruiser idles at the curb beneath a flickering neon "open" sign, though every window of the diner across the street is dark. I kill the engine and kill the lights, leaving the red glow of the sign dancing across my hood. The diner's door hangs ajar, a single chime ringing as I push it open. Inside, vinyl booths line the walls, their upholstery cracked and peeling. The linoleum floor is slick with a rainbow sheen of spilled coffee and oil. I lift my flashlight and sweep the beam. Half-eaten pies sit under a glass dome, plates stacked in a booth, a coffee pot still warm. Steam drifts from the percolator, fogging the lamp above it. Silence presses so hard I can almost hear my own pulse. I step to the counter. A cup slides toward me on its own, empty, rim wet with condensation. I grip its edges, lifting it to my nose. No smell, just cold metal and stale cream. My radio sits beside it, microphone dangling. The static within it whispers, "Taste it." My teeth clench. I set the cup back and follow the counter to the kitchen door. It's locked, padlocked, but the chain is cut, links jagged. I slide it aside, push the door inward. The kitchen is a mausoleum of rusting equipment. A meat slicer still stained, pots hanging above a stove long cold. I notice chalk on a butcher's block, letters scrawled REMEMBER. Beneath, footprints pockmark the tiled floor, leading toward a back hallway. I hesitate, holster hand hovering. Training says wait for backup. Instinct says follow. I step into the hallway. At its end, a low door stands closed. I push it open. It's a storeroom filled with children's toys. Dolls lined on shelves, board games stacked, teddy bears wreathing a single-framed photograph on the far wall. The photo is of me, in uniform, standing on the steps of Crestwood PD the morning after the case broke. My face younger, hopeful. I gulp. Below, names are etched into the wood in childish handwriting. The 7 victims' names, plus mine at the bottom. A squeal of brakes outside snaps me around. Flashing lights spill through the diner's front windows. Cruiser after cruiser. Sirens silent but lights on. Reinforcements? Relief? I hurry back the hallway, push at the storeroom door behind me, and it won't budge. I ram it with my shoulder. Wood splinters. I hear a soft giggle from within. My heart races. I draw my pistol and kick again. The door swings open inward. Inside, the toys have rearranged themselves. 24 dolls now seated at a miniature table. Tea-set, poised, as if waiting. In the center, my cruiser's hubcap sits atop a pedestal of building blocks. I lift it, and etched on its face is the date, December 5th, 2011. My hands shake. I set it down and stare at the photograph on the wall, now cracked, the glass stained with what looks like tears. Behind me, the chain rattles. I spin, but the hallway is gone. The door back to the kitchen is replaced by a mirror. I approach it, breath fogging the surface. My reflection wavers, then disappears, leaving only the empty room behind the glass. The giggle echoes again, closer, warmer. I turn, and Lily's pale face peers at me from the darkness, hand reaching out. Then the floor gives way, I plunge through. The world tilts, and I fall. Through darkness, through water, through memories I thought were buried. I land in ice-chilled water, submerged to my chest in a flooded basement, musty and dark. The water ripples as shapes drift around me, faces of the missing, eyes pleading. Lily swims beside me, fingers brushing my arm. She points up, toward a single barred window high in the wall. I tread water, gaze fixed on the window. Moonlight filters through, casting bars across my chest. I kick toward it, arms clawing at the soaked wall. Behind me, the faces swirl faster. My lungs burn. One by one, 50 pairs of hands reach out, weaving together into a rope. They snag on my uniform, tugging me down. Panic rises. I slam my fist against the wall beneath the window and feel my fingers catch on cold metal, rungs of a ladder. I climb, every rung slick, every pull an ache through my arms. The rope hisses, slipping off my belt. I climb faster. The window nears. Lily surfaces beside me, smiling sadly. She holds up a rusted key. I reach, grasp it, and the faces vanish. I burst through the window into the night air and tumble onto grass, rain drenching my face. The window snaps shut above me, leaving only rain and wind. I stagger upright. Across the lawn, the diner glows, yet no doors appear, just walls. The lights flicker as I look down. The rusted key lies in my palm, blood mixing with rain. I open my hand. Inscription on the key reads, routine. I exhale, knees buckling, and whisper into the storm. I remember. Silence greets me. Before the radio in my pocket bursts to life, do you remember all of us? And the night answers only with the thunder rolling behind me. I step away from the collapsed diner and its impossible basement, rain plastering my hair to my skull as I sprint toward the street. My cruiser's headlights flicker in the distance, one beam weak as a dying candle. I dive inside, slamming the door and locking it. The engine turns over with a cough. I throw it into drive, tires spinning in loose gravel, and peel out onto the highway. The neon sign fades behind me, swallowed by mist as though it never existed. I follow the road under skeletal trees, each branch clawing at the sky. The miles pass in a blur of taillights and white stripes. My breathing shakes my chest like a bellows. My mind replays every stop. The truck with the dangling sneaker, the vanishing sedan, the phantom bus, the bakery trailer, the neon-lit diner. Each one a fragment, a lost face, a name whispered on the wind. I reach for the hubcap key in my pocket, rusted routine glinting in the low light. I twist it between my fingers, the metal cold against my skin, until the teeth cut into my palm. I taste iron. The road curves again, and I crest a rise to find the old Crestwood PD building looming ahead. The Victorian mansion shuttered, weeds climbing the walls. The only light is a single bulb above the sealed basement door, now fitted with a fresh padlock gleaming new. I kill the engine, stepping out. Rain hammers my shoulders as I approach the door, the same door James Merritt found. My flashlight stutters, then dies entirely, just the bulb overhead swinging in the wind. I place the hubcap key into the padlock's shackle. It fits. I inhale, twist. The lock clicks open. My breath hitches. I push the steel door inward, and a waft of stale air greets me, carrying the scent of dust and decay. I drop my flashlight, but catch it before it shatters. Flick it on. The beam falls on a corridor of concrete walls, lined with empty shelving. No evidence boxes, no photographs, nothing but peeling paint. Footsteps echo behind me. I whirl. The corridor stretches back into the dark. Hello? My voice sounds small, no reply, only the steady drip of water from a leaking pipe. I move forward, each step stirring motes in the beam, dust or something older. The corridor ends at a black door. I press my palm to the cold surface. No handle. A name carved into the concrete above. Hale. My heart stops. I trace it with my finger. The door swings inward before my hand reaches it. I stumble through into a low-ceilinged chamber lit by a single bare bulb. The floor is covered in a thin layer of water, reflecting the light like a tarnished mirror. At the center stands a metal table, rusted straps dangling, and before it, a row of 7 chairs facing me. Empty. The walls bear photographs. 7 faces, dazed, terrified, same photographs Merritt described. Below them, a single handwritten line in black marker, "You've remembered." Behind me, the corridor door slams shut. I spin, breathing so hard my ribs ache. I kneel before the table, flashlight shaken. On its surface lies a stack of photos. First, Lily's face, then Maria's, Thomas's, Diana's, Alberto's, Seamus's, Jonah's. Each name etched in my mind from those stops I'd labeled routine. Beneath the last, a final photograph. My own face, pale and wide-eyed, standing under the oak tree outside the evidence room on November 14th, 2011, the day I read James Merritt's testimony. A voice, my voice, reverberates around the chamber. Routine was a lie. The words hiss like steam. The bulb flickers. I look up to see a shape in the shadows, tall, shoulders hunched, brimmed hat hiding the face. It steps forward into the naked light. Not James Merritt, not Lily, but me, older, hollowed. He unlocks my gaze with his own. "You remembered, but did you act?" I swallow, chest tight. "I came back," I manage. My flashlight beam grazes the table's edge, now lined with tools, a bolt cutter, a key cutter, a selection of files bearing case numbers I never revisited. My twin reflections flank the table, the me who forgot, the me who remembered. They lean in, voices merging into one. "Now, finish it." Rain rumbles overhead as the chamber seems to tilt. Water seeps higher, swirling around my calves. The doors behind me rattle. I turn. 7 pale hands press against the glass-paneled door, smudging the water into streaks. The faces behind them press forward, the missing, the forgotten, Lily among them, darkest eyes imploring. I tuck the first photo, Lily's, into my pocket, then the next, until I carry them all. The older me steps aside. "Go," he commands. The door swings open. I hesitate, then wade through the ankle-deep water, clutching the photographs like evidence of my redemption. I emerge into the rain-soaked night at the top of the mansion's stone steps. The chamber below seals itself with a muffled thud. The basement door swings closed, padlocks with a final click. I stand beneath the single bulb, photographs pressed to my chest. In the distance, sirens approach, real response this time, lights carving the mist. I turn my head, hear dispatch crackling. "Unit 12, we've got your location. You okay, Officer Hale?" My voice is steady, resolve woven through the static. "I'm here, and I'll bring them home." I raise my gaze to the silent mansion, haunted by secrets now laid bare. In my pocket, the photos whisper against my heart. I step forward toward the wail of sirens into the storm. And as I move, one final question lingers in the roar. What makes a routine, if not the courage to see it through?